Council agenda, Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, regular Township Council meeting of September 25th, 2018.
Posting of notice. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building and on the municipal website on December 20th, 2017, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record and the Newark Star Ledger on December 27, 2017, and was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers on December 20th, 2017. Council meetings are videotaped and aired on Public Access Channel 21 at 7 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Please rise for the flag salute. Mr. Shapiro, if you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Here.
Ms. Grignani,
Present.
Ms. McCarthy,
Here.
Ms. Peterson,
Here.
Mr. Carriffy.
Here.
Also in attendance are Business Administrator Ellen Sandman, Township Attorney Jim Lott, Township Clerk Colette Madden, Council President. We have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, October 16th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. Agenda meeting. October 30th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. Regular meeting. Approval of minutes.
Minutes will be on for the next agenda.
Thank you. Presentation, reports. The mayor.
So at this time, I'm just going to speak on behalf of the mayor because he's not here. This is in response to the concerns that was the residents were having with regard to the water quality. So we have brought Mr. John Weworka, the water superintendent, to present on that matter. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
John, before you start, I want to thank you for being here. I know I called you the day after our council meeting to address some of the concerns of not only the residents, but the residents that were here. And I thank you for coming here. I had asked you if you could, and you're here. So I thank you very much for being here.
Hello.
Good evening, Council. My name is John Weworka. I'm the Water Superintendent for the Parsippany Water Department. Okay. Please start over. I'm John Weworka. I'm the Water Superintendent for the Water Department. I've been the Water Superintendent for the last 2 years. Prior to that, I was the Assistant Water Superintendent for 16 years. I've been asked to come here to give a brief overview of Parsippany's water. Parsippany has 18 active groundwater wells. We also receive water from Morris County MUA for our Pudding Stone area. And we also receive water from Jersey City Reservoir, which is known as Jersey City MUA. They supplement our water supply in the warm weather months, and it mainly supplies our lower half of town. We have an allegation total of 342 million gallons a month. 280 million gallons of that comes from our groundwater wells per month. We get 2 million from Morris County MUA, and we get 60 million gallons a month from Jersey City MUA. We have several booster stations that take the water from the low end of town and pump it up into our higher elevations. We also have many water storage tanks that you see alongside the highway. They say Parsippany on them. They're big and they're blue. That does store our finished water. Parsippany's water is considered a public community water system.
10 minutes.
Who controls this? The EPA, the New Jersey DEP. They apply the rules from the Safe Drinking Water Act and any subsequent additions to the rules. Our sampling schedule is mandated by the New Jersey DEP. Our schedule can be seen on the DEP's website called Water Watch. The results are published there also. We must follow federal safe drinking water regulations. must follow New Jersey State Safe Drinking Water regulations. We must comply with the recently passed Water Quality Accountability Act. The acronym is WQAA. That name's a real tongue twister. We're in compliance with all of these. We're required to do sampling of our water. We sample for bacteria, inorganics, secondary contaminants, volatile organic contaminants, radionuclides, lead and copper, unregulated contaminants, just to name a few. They're mandatory. Only state-certified labs can be used. Labs must report the results to the DEP directly without any input from us. We just get a copy of the results. Results can be seen on the New Jersey DEP's website called WaterWatch. If you type in New Jersey DEP WaterWatch, you will see that site come up, and then you can just put in Parsippany, and you can see our current tests. Public information, our annual consumer confidence report is the best source of our public information. What it is a summarized report of our sampling for the calendar year prior to this date, meaning the calendar year would run from January 1st through December 31st of 2017 for 2018's report. We don't have 2018's report because we're not done with the calendar year yet. But if you want the up-to-date stuff, you can go to WaterWatch and check there. Inside this consumer confidence report is a table. The table is our centerpiece of the report. It lists all the contaminants that we have detected through our sampling throughout the year. Our report can be found online too. If you look at your water bill, when a resident gets their water bill, in the top right-hand corner, there is a link that will take you directly to our consumer confidence report. You also can go to the township's website, parsippany.net. Or you can walk down the hallway into our main lobby, and there are hard copies there for you to take. Or you can give us a call, and we'd be happy to mail them to you. In our current CCR, tetrachloroethylene is reported. This is the well we shut down in June of 2017. It is not in violation under any safe drinking water standards. Another source of our information mentioned is the WaterWatch with the DEP. There you can see the up-to-date results. Is our water safe? The answer is yes. If we did have a problem with our water, we would be required and mandated to give public notification. Our WQAA certification states that we are in compliance with all the federal and state regulations. We also get inspected by the DEP on an annual basis. There was recently a published online article that insinuated our water is contaminated. We do have one well that showed the presence of tetrachloroethylene, otherwise known as PCE, but it was below our safe drinking water standard. Out of abundance of caution, we decided to take the well offline and look into options to treat the water and rehabilitate the well. The property the well sits on is very small and has several shortcomings to establishing an on-site treatment system. The presence of the PCE, tetrachloroethylene, has been there for decades, but all below the safe drinking water standard. The believed polluter has been defunct for decades. Because we saw a slight uptick in the PCE concentration, we decided to take that well offline June of last year. It's been off ever since. We are actively looking for a replacement well location and working with our hydrogeologist. It was determined that due to the property size, location, and the presence of the PCA, that the current site is not the best choice for rehabilitation and the treatment process. We are currently looking at other locations to replace this well and treat if needed. Our 2018 volatile organic compound sampling results have not shown PCE present in the finished water since the well was shut down. It should be noted that we do treat for PCE at one other location since the year 2000. But after treatment, before it reaches the public, the level is 0. I'd like to talk a little about deficits that were in that recent online news article. We are looking into the basis for that report, and we're not aware of the deficit. I believe Ellen's going to speak later about that. Our allocation from the DEP has not changed. It's been 280 million gallons a month. The NJDEP has not contacted us otherwise. In the last 5 years, our withdrawal from the aquifer has been between 36 and 77 million gallons a month under our allocation in the peak month, which is the summer. And finally, I'd like to just say a word about conservation. Lawn watering is the #1 consumption of water during the peak month. Lawn watering in the dry season can double our demand. Please water only as needed. Excessive water wastes our valuable resource. We do have seasonal water conservation ordinance that restricts lawn watering from June 1st to September 30th. We are on an odd, even basis for residential watering. You can water between 5 and 9, both in the morning and in the evening, except no watering on Fridays. Commercial properties can only water on Mondays and Thursdays, also from 5 to 9, both in the morning and in the evening. Lastly, our consumer confidence reports have some suggestions, some helpful suggestions on the second to last page that can help us all do our part and conserve water. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, before you go, if any of the council members have questions, we'll
Sure.
ask you. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to the public. I'll give, if anybody has a question, it'll be just for 1 minute, because we have a lot of going on tonight. But I think there may be some questions that were brought up at the last meeting, or some things that were discussed that only you would be able to answer.
Okay.
So this way you're here, they can get the answer right from the person that knows. Okay, so if any council member has any questions?
I have a question. In all of your years working for the water department, has Parsippany ever distributed water that were outside the requirements of the DEP or the federal regulations?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I'd have to research that, Councilman.
Yeah, well, I'm not aware of any, and I've been here a long time, too. Okay, thank you. That was my question. I'm not aware of any time that we ever had water that was tainted that we gave to the public.
Go ahead. I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, I just wanted, you had said that that well that was discussed was shut down in June of 2017?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And when we first heard about that well, I believe we were told it was shut down because it had run out of water. And I think that's the contentious bit, is that one story was that it was dry, and then later it was determined to have this.
No.
It's right and it's wrong.
Okay.
Let me explain. The well is in need of redevelopment. Over time, the media around the well gets calcified with minerals, and we need to do some mechanical rehabilitation to bring the well back to not its full glory. Well's best shape is the day it's drilled, but we can rehabilitate the well and get water back. That's not the main issue. The main issue is the presence of this contaminant and the size of the site. The site is in such a location where we can't build a treatment plant there. So, you know, the rehabilitation part of the well is kind of a moot point unless we wanted to use that well and transport it to a treatment plant at another site, which is not our first choice.
I would like to address that because I was the one that was giving the report. Again, I spoke as a novice, and I used the word that the well was going dry. We also, but for the record, I would just like to say that I met with John Walker back when, and we were talking about our wells. And in this case, John will bear me out. We talked about it because I called you the next day after the council meeting from Vegas, but he didn't give me any good pointers. But anyway, I spoke with John and I said, can you, my recollection was that we had met. This well was never going to produce, as you say, the first time you drill it, that's your bet. It was not producing. It was starting to go in the opposite direction. So in a proactive way, although it's, as he said, it's true and it's true and it's can be considered. The explanation is we said, look why would we invest $80,000 plus whatever it would cost to treat it? It will never go back up or close to, and it has this element that never exceeded the 1 point per billion. So we said out of being proactive, we said we'll shut it down. And that's when I also said at that meeting, John and I had discussed the location of relocating something, three other locations. We talked in detail about it, and we thought the better part of valor was to shut something down that, even if it was the cost of them, if you listen to what John said, also the property is very small. So the possibility of refurbishing it and then trying to have a treatment facility on that same location, and the possibility that it could go it slightly went up going towards that 1 point per billion, we said, why risk it? Why invest? We never want to, throw good money after bad, as the saying. So when I spoke about it going dry, yes, it was going in a downward fashion, and that needed to be clarified. And I'm glad you raised it again, because I wanted to address that and say, I used, because John corrected me 3 times on the phone in the Vegas and said, Ellen, you have to remember you're using layman's terms about something going dry. And I apologize for that if I made any upsetment or confusion. But I can assure you, and John can answer Mike's question to this, on your watch has all the years that you've worked for. How many years have you worked for the water department?
I've been here 18 years.
In your 18 years, have you ever seen any report that has succeeded?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. And I think you'd probably recall it if it went over. So.
John, has this ever come up before? You said it was down in June 2017? You said it was June 2017?
June 2017. We watched it for a year, and it was fluctuating. The bar is set very low for this contaminant. It's 1 part per billion.
I just wondered if it had ever come up before.
It would tick up, it would tick down by 1 decimal point, 0.1. We'd see it go either way, but we did see it tick up a few, and it kind of stayed there. And out of abundance of caution, we figured it was best to shut this well down until we can get some treatment going there.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions at this time, if any members of the public would like to come up, you can ask one question, and we'll have John answer it for you.
Ken Dalsky, 21 Winfield Drive. So I didn't hear you talk about overall capacity and how robust the reserve level is. I know we have not exceeded the DEP withdrawal levels, but we also share the aquifer, and we're kind of in the same huck as other towns. I think Boonton and Montville are also drawing from the same aquifer. Do you have any sense overall, is the overall level of the aquifer stable? Is it continually going down? Has it been, recently, has rain recharged it to the point where, it's practically overflowing? Just where are we?
So, for the record, when there's a question and answer, I just request everybody speak directly into the mic. For the record, I'll give you a mic so you can just speak to it.
Is that's your question?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not totally up. That would be something a hydrogeologist would be studying, as far as the relationship between Parsippany and the surrounding towns that are drawing from the buried valley aquifer that you're referring to. We do see our water levels fluctuate, and it's very weather dependent. On a wet season, we will see them come up. On a dry season, we'll see them come down. The overall capacity, though, I would not be an expert to answer that question.
All right, well, I just think it's kind of important to understand where we are, and is it trending down? Is it staying constant? Just because, we may have additional water needs, and I think that'd be something that we should understand.
Ken, one of the things that had happened was the Councilwoman McCarthy got a letter or an email from someone from Manjack asking a lot of questions. So what I did when I got a copy of it, I sent it to our representative at the Highlands, and I had asked for information in writing to address all those issues. And they thought they might have something this evening, but because of the technical and the aspect, as you know, there's over the 88 municipalities that make up the Highlands, and for them to give an accurate information, they wanted to say sometime next week we're going to get some letters
Okay.
to address those kinds of things.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
John, could you address the source of the TEC, and can you also
Wait,
tell us...
state your name and address for the record.
Brian Tappan, Glacier Hills. And how much of it you think was dumped and will filter through the system?
That's a really good question.
Brian, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question in the mic, because people did not hear you?
I want to know the source of the chemical and how much of the chemical was dumped, because it's not a naturally occurring chemical.
No, it's not a naturally occurring chemical. The believed polluter was Bouton Electric. They are long defunct. We have no idea how much of this stuff went into the ground. There is no record of it. It's been in the ground. We've been detecting it for years. I have no way of knowing exactly what they dumped.
John told me on the phone it goes back to the 60s, if that's correct, if my recollection, 60s, 70s?
Yeah, 70s, I think
Yeah.
it is.
Anyone else?
Mary, is that high enough for you? Okay.
No. Mary Przicki, Marcella Road. You mentioned that there are treatment systems linked to wells. Is that correct? And if it is, how many wells have these treatment systems, and what are basically they're used for?
Mary, we have one well currently that uses a treatment system to remove this contaminant. It's an air stripper, and it's just one site.
Thank you.
My name is Bob Venezia. I live at 102 Brooklawn Drive. I had come before the council with several questions, and I don't have a question tonight, but I got answers to some of these questions since the last meeting, and Mr. Wewerka provided the answers, and I just want to, tell you, the results of what I found out. And
We'll save that for the regular public, because this is just for
Yeah.
the questions
Just
for
questions.
him directly, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you have
well,
an additional.
what I want him to do, I want him here to correct anything that I may say that's not quite right. So I don't have a question, but
How long is this thing?
Yeah,
How long?
I mean, it's,
You got 1 minute.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you get
1
it-
minute?
Get it in a minute or not?
No, I
Or he can give him a copy.
Yeah, or if you
Make
wanna-
a
More
copy of it, and then John can
Yeah, would you like to
respond.
give him a copy
Yeah,
of that? And then
yeah.
if there's anything that wasn't answered, or
Yeah.
he can verify the
Yeah.
answers for you?
well,
He can grade you
I
on it.
I wanted to, since I asked these questions in public, I wanted the public to hear the answers.
I think he
So,
stated a lot of
just-
the answers. Didn't he? What? I think he stated a lot of the answers. I
Yes, he
thought,
did.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
he did state a
So
lot of
why
the
don't you
answers.
give him a copy of it, and he can review it, and we can bring it up to the next meeting.
All right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
we'll
that's
do
just
that.
my thought, because a minute.
Yeah, if there's any questions on
Yeah.
there that you can get.
questions here. These
Eh.
statements.
Right,
Any
but if
statement.
there's anything that wasn't answered, you can give it to the clerk, and then we'll make sure we get the answers for you, and I can read them off into the public. We'll put it on the record for you.
Mr. Venezia, are you comfortable coming back during the open session?
Yeah.
And speaking of the statements that you have,
Yeah,
that you
then
had
you have 3
I don't
reading?
know if John's gonna
Yeah.
be here.
but John may not be here.
So
but-
yes.
Bob, hold on. Here's a solution for you. Why don't you give these to John right now? Let him review them, and then he'll give them back to you. If there are any issues, he'll let you know, and then you can read them to the public. How's
That's
that?
good. One
Works,
for you.
right?
One for you, Colette.
All right. Now 1 minute is passed, so
Okay.
go ahead.
Yes, Lou Valori, 36 Gathering Hill Court. Quick question, you had mentioned the contamination coming from Boonton Electric. Did any of that contamination go into Lake Interville, because it's right on that border up there? Did any of the contaminants ever go into Lake Interville there?
I couldn't answer that. We don't sample Lake Intervale.
Okay.
Lake Intervale is in the Intervale section of town here? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I would say no, the plume is not moving in that direction. The plume is moving in the opposite direction towards our well.
Because I know the old factory that was on the border of Boonton and Lake Interville per se, that area there. Yeah, there was contaminants that were leaking out there at one time.
There could be other polluters in town. We just don't happen to have a well in that vicinity where we're sampling from.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Nicholas Homiak, Lake Hiawatha. Was a possible reason that this chemical showed up in this well was because of the drawdown of the diminished water level, because the PCE chemical is heavier than water, so it would sink to the bottom of the well. And there was a well on the border of Parsippany and Denville, I believe around 2000, that was closed because of the same type of contamination. So being the Buried Valley Aquifer is interconnected in unknown ways, is it possible that there was another source besides the source that you're mentioning that could have also entered this particular well?
I'm not aware of another source. The one source is an identified site, and it is reasonably close to our well and is believed to be the primary pollutant. And you are correct. As a well starts to diminish in its capacity, we do start pulling further down into the water column, and that's just what you're getting at, is that the concentration is heavier toward the bottom of the well screen than it is at the top. When a well's normally function is producing water from all levels of the well screen.
Yeah.
And that could be a possibility.
Thank you. Okay. John, thank you very much.
Thank you,
John.
John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, Township Council will have a presentation, plastic bag presentation.
Yeah.
Vice President?
Yeah, Nandini Checco is going to make the presentation for us. She is a project director at ANJAC. She's an ANJAC lead on plastic pollution issues, seeking to educate, empower, and mobilize environmental commissions, green teams, and other local officials in municipal environmental protection. She also developed ANJAC's course on highly effective environmental commissions, edited the Environmental Commission's Handbook, and speaks at workshops on environmental commission powers and responsibilities. She holds an MA degree from Columbia University in organizational development and a BS degree from the School of Business at Rutgers University. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm gonna pick up this mic here. I have a presentation. Can we lower the lights just a tiny bit?
Yeah, I thought he was. Yeah. That'd be good.
That mic might have been
That-
turned
yeah,
off.
that
Yeah,
mic-
yeah. You didn't want to have
How's
feedback.
that?
There you
Better?
go.
Yeah, there
Okay,
you go.
great.
Better?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. In my introduction, I didn't write it, but I didn't tell you, I'm also from Parsippany.
Oh, perfect.
So I came to Parsippany when I was about 12. I don't live here anymore, but my parents still do, over by Lake Parsippany. So this is really home sweet home. This is my first time in this building. I was invited on behalf of the council as well as the Parsippany Environmental Advisory Board, and I appreciate that. So I am thrilled to be going after John, who's talking about water quality, because plastics is all about water quality. Is it okay? Can you guys see? I don't want to block you.
More lights down?
Yeah, I think if the lights right on front of it, if those lights could go out, and then,
Yeah.
That one bank.
All right.
There you go, perfect.
Is that better?
Is that better?
Oh, that's great.
It takes an engineer, thank you.
You're working on a title.
All right. Thank you. So, plastic is in our lives every day. From the moment we wake up, from the clothes that we wear, to our shampoos, to our water bottles, to our shampoo bottles, to our cell phones, our cars, it's here to stay. But for the purpose of today's presentation, I'm going to be talking about single-use plastics. Those are those items that are one and done. And the reason for that is close to 40% of the industrial sector in plastics is towards single-use packaging. So what do I mean by that? So let's take a look at some of these photos on the screen. All right, so if you can see my little laser here, this is pretty common. I'm sure most of you have seen this. Tell me here, I'm going to throw this out to everybody, including you folks. What are items that are considered single use? So that's one and done. What's here that you guys can see? Just call it out. Straws. Yep, straws. What else? Sure, soda cans. I'm sorry?
Styrofoam cups?
Styrofoam cups. Yeah, takeout containers. Sure. Bags. Yeah, bags. Right, water bottles. Thank you. So there are a couple other things that are missing that's considered single use, and that's actually cigarette butts and balloons, but we don't have those categorized there. Can someone tell me what this little marker on the drain is, the storm drain? Why is that? Why don't we put that, use that as a garbage can? Like, woohoo, that's great. It's right here, handy, every few feet.
It all drains to the ocean.
Right.
Yeah, right. It drains right to the rivers, right? And so this really affects our water quality. And if what happens here, it drains to the rivers, but sometimes it stops in front of these detention basins and it gets clogged. It gets jammed up here. And if we're lucky, our DPW comes out there and cleans it up, or some fantastic volunteers. But most often, unfortunately, it goes right into the waterway. All right, so what happens when it gets into the water? I don't know about you, but I just want to scream to this little bird, don't eat that styrofoam. So please don't eat it. It's not food, right? Obviously, it's not food. So not only does it it goes in there and it breaks down. So one of the things that you hear a lot in the news, because there's a lot of conversation about this, plastic does not degrade. It breaks up into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics. And that bird doesn't know the difference between the styrofoam and food. But it's also going into our water, as you can see. So what happens then? So there are certain plastics that float and some that sink into seawater. And here's just a little explanation of what floats and what sinks. You could see that those soft drink bottles really go far down, whereas the bottle caps kind of float up. There's over 40 years of data that talks about the top 10 polluting items in our waterways. So once it enters our water, what happens here? So this is called bioaccumulation in the food web, right? So that plastic breaks up into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics. Some of them are smaller than a grain of sand. Well, the small fish don't know that, just the same way the bird doesn't know it's not food. And they eat it, and the larger fish eat the smaller fish, and up to the predators. And that is a problem because, I don't know about you all, but I love seafood. So this is a pretty appalling figure here. There is 80% of the marine litter originates from land. every minute there's a garbage truck unloads into the ocean, if you think of it that way. Because by 2025, there's going to be a 1-to-1 ratio of fish by weight to plastics in our oceans at the rate of consumption. All right. So these couple of photos here, if I can change my notes, have gone viral. This bird here, anybody know what kind of bird that is? A seagull? No, actually that's an albatross. Yeah. So certain bird species are more vulnerable to plastic than others. So this albatross, unfortunately, like the baby chicks, like they found close to 97% of the albatross chicks have died because of the plastics in their stomachs, and 89% of adult birds have died due to plastic. And this photo here went viral. This came from a whale that was beached off the coast of China, and they found 30 plastic bags in its stomach. So you guys are probably wondering, all right, well, how does that affect me? What happens here locally? Anybody know what this is? What river? That's right, it's the Passaic River. And here in Parsippany, there are two other rivers, right? What are the other two?
Rockaway.
The Rockaway and the Whippany River, right. So you have three rivers. I'm going to start with the Passaic here. So what we were discussing earlier in my previous slide, everything goes into the water, right? Especially on the storm drains. So here in the Passaic River, this study just recently came out from Rutgers University. They studied the fragments in the Raritan and Passaic rivers, and they identified more than 300 organic chemical compounds that's associated with microplastics in these two rivers. So, New Jersey, we have a lot of square miles, close to 9 million people in population. 1 inch of rain equals 18.2 billion gallons, and we've certainly had more than an inch of rain recently, just even in the last hour. 90% of New Jersey's rivers are impaired, and localized flooding is a problem in most communities. So certainly, how does the plastic, single-use plastic or any litter, that's littering, that's part of the problem, but we also have an issue with stormwater and flooding, and that's taking all of this stuff on the roads, all the pesticides, everything on the roads into our waterways. All right, so back to me. What does that mean to me? So let's talk about what is in our plastics. So plastics are made up of PCBs, flame retardant, plasticizers, pathogens, DDT, all these lovely, lovely things that are actually not very good for us. And as I mentioned, what goes into the ocean goes into you. Clean air and clean water are absolutely vital. And this is what this is about. Now, this chart here talks about cumulative plastic waste generation and disposal. We are producing a vast amount of plastic. As you can see, it quadruples anything else. And what am I talking about here? All waste discarded, incinerated, or recycled. Those are our choices. We are producing more than we are eliminating. Recycling is no longer an option. What we need to do is stop it at the source. And one of the reasons that I like single-use plastic in the sense that it is single use. All of us here can make a commitment to limit how much we use. There's some legislation coming up statewide. There was Governor Murphy vetoed the last state plastic bag bill because he felt it wasn't comprehensive enough. And just recently, and actually Thursday afternoon in Trenton, if anybody's interested, Senator Smith, who's with the Energy and Environment Group, will be introducing a bill banning all single-use plastic bags, expended polystyrene, it's also known as styrofoam, and straws. There's also 3 resolutions that are coming to play. So it's a good thing that you guys are having this conversation now about introducing an ordinance in Parsippany. So the first one is urging cooperative approach among all levels of government to provide funding and other resources to clean up plastic pollution. The second one is working with the DEP and Economic Development Authority to establish a plastics recycling marketplace. And the third is with the federal government so that there's extended producer responsibility. So what's happening locally? Since there's been so much coverage and interest and care and passion for everybody to be stewards of air and water in our local community, there's a lot of local legislation going up. Lambertville just last week passed a very comprehensive ban on all single-use plastics. Ventnor, Brigantine, Jersey City, Hoboken, those folks have banned plastic bags. All right, so here this is more for the council as far as acting swiftly and passing your own ordinance. And if you have a cleanup event coming up, we encourage you to invite your town council people as well as your legislators, and then pass a municipal resolution of support, and as always, vote and get in touch with your legislators. There's a lot of activity, programs going around the state as well. And again, this is wonderful because there are kids involved. Once you get students involved, it changes everything. Here in Glen Rock, they put in a water hydration station. Here, this is from my friend Lisa Plevin, this monofilament photo. Recycling, because fishing gear is also a problem in our waters. Here, this is Teaneck. The Girl Scouts of Teaneck worked for close to 4 years on an ordinance to ban single-use plastics. And this is Tinton Falls, is working on a program on straws. And they're movies connecting all this ecology throughout the state. And Michelle, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce my colleague, Michelle Gaynor. She works with me, and she also lives in Parsippany, and she's with the Environmental Advisory Committee. So she'll be talking about that, I'm sure, in a minute. So that's what I have as far as, it's kind of brief, but I'm happy to take questions.
What were the most recent ordinance that were passed? I think Jersey City, is that a ban? Or
Yes, Jersey City is a ban on plastics, yes.
And there's a
single-use
difference
plastics.
between some of these towns that have a 5-cent fee and a ban, right?
Right, so there's what we like to call the best way of doing it based on information throughout the country and the nation is to do a ban fee hybrid, where you ban single-use plastics and you charge a fee on paper as well as reusables.
What would be the replacement for straws?
Oh my gosh, there's so much out there. You can go back to paper. There's also pasta straws.
Well,
There's
I was
aluminum
thinking of
straws.
people in the hospital, people that are sick, or
Yeah,
that can't drink from a
Sure.
container.
There is a caveat. If you medically need a straw, you can definitely get a plastic straw. There is a there's a caveat on that bill.
Haven't some schools banned them as well? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Haven't schools banned them as well, I think, locally? There are.
Straws?
Yeah.
I've heard of townships, but not schools.
Okay.
There are schools that have banned styrofoam.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. There was a cartoon on the internet, and it showed the governor chasing a little girl that had her fruit juice with a straw in it, and running away. She won't give up her straw. The cartoon.
Well, I think that this is going to push our manufacturers and us as consumers, because, you know what, manufacturers are only going to produce stuff that consumers want to buy. So it's going to push them to be more creative and come up with better solutions.
That was the reason for my question, because, you know, you have to replace the straws with something else then.
Yes, yes. Well, as far as what's available and viable in the marketplace, I'm not, there are, like I said, there's stainless steel straws, which my kids use. They're out there. There's a variety of items like paper straws, pasta straws. You know, there's stuff out there, silicone straws. There's a variety of items that are available.
Yeah, well, for people that go to Dunkin' Donuts for coffee or something, we tend to bring our own permanent
Great.
cups.
That's
I
great.
guess that's the alternative to using their styrofoam cups.
Yes, yes, but Dunkin' Donuts, I believe, has committed to getting rid of the styrofoam cups. And once this goes live in New Jersey, which I'm hoping, they'll have to move a lot faster to make that happen.
There's a question.
Yes, we have some questions. Great. Yes.
I'm sorry, the questions, you'll have to
Oh,
come up to
sorry.
the mic and speak in the mic for the record. Sorry, guys, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be...
While you're walking up, I just want to ask if we can
Sure.
have any documentation that you have and get it to the clerk,
I'd
so
be-
that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, unless you already have it to
I-
him. Any?
We have it.
Yeah, okay,
I mean,
good.
we have
That-
the ordinance.
Yeah.
Yes,
If
we
you
have
can
a
get
model
everything to
ordinance, a
the
resolution.
clerks, yeah, because instead of us reinventing the wheel and.
Absolutely no reason
Yeah.
for that.
I don't want to take any work away from you, Jim, but maybe we can.
No, we have everything. We have it available to you.
You mentioned Senator Smith.
Yes.
Obviously, last time I had found something in regards to him wanting to tax taxpayers' tap water. Is that the same legislation? Are they bundling those concerns? Because Senator Smith was the one that was going to create legislation that taxpayers will be responsible for paying tap water. So is this like a bundled bill that he has in mind?
No, no, no. I'm not aware of that bill. Okay.
I had thought California had a problem with banning the plastic straws because they found out that people with disabilities, people at nursing homes and hospitals could not really sip on a paper straw.
Yes.
So I think things do have to be thought out thoroughly for situations like that. And you say you have stainless steel straws, but I mean, cleaning stainless steel straws in a hospital is going to be a trick and a half,
No, I
I think.
understand that. There's a caveat for that.
And what's that caveat?
Just if you, for medical reasons, if you need a straw, then it's.
Hello, Big Brother. That's amazing to me. I just can't fathom that. The other thing of it is you say fee on paper bags.
Yes.
And is paper bags taxable or not?
What do you mean?
Are they taxable? Like when I go to the store and my toilet paper's taxable and my paper towels are taxable, will the state also get a tax revenue from those paper bags we will have to buy?
It's not the funds, as we are recommending, it doesn't go to the state. It
Now-
stays with the merchant.
Okay, so how's the sales tax work on paper bags?
There's no sales tax. It's just a 10-cent fee. So, and also you can avoid it by bringing your own bags. So you forget your reusable bags.
Well, then if I get a lunch bag and I use that at the store, I shouldn't be taxed for my lunch bags.
That's right. That's
Right,
If you bring your own
so-
bags,
No,
there's
no,
no
I bought
fee
this-
associated.
If I buy lunch paper bags, there's a tax on the
I
paper.
see, I
And I
see.
am saying, with Trenton being the way it is, that I don't want somebody to sneak a sales tax on the paper bags.
As far as I understand, there's not going to be a sales tax on the paper on the sale of that product.
And you know, I mean, ShopRite, on their plastic bags, they tell you to reuse them and then please recycle them. I mean, I really think that people should be better educated on cycling things. And also, in this town, when you see all the plastic bags, plastic bottles, et cetera, cans on the road, it'll be sometimes when the garbage men come on a windy day, and you've got more garbage than you can shake a stick at in the road. And I think towns should have to come up with solutions for better garbage collections, because Hanover has the single garbage collection truck, one driver and the mechanics for it, and it's a much cleaner town than ours. So I think the town should have responsibilities towards that. And I don't know if you can ban all plastic bags. It's what do you do when you go to a laundromat and you got big items, and what kind of paper bag are you going to get to put all those bedspreads in? I mean, give me a break here, you know? And I truly think you have to consider situations before you do all of that, and then push for recycling. People do not recycle, and they can better recycle through education.
So I agree with what you're saying. So all of this is a process, and what our goal is to challenge people to think differently and take some responsibility. And there are many components that add to water quality issues. And part of it is the process improvement of how the garbage trucks are holding on to their garbage. You know, they have to hold it tightly, of course. So this is just a process. This is one step moving in the direction of reducing plastic pollution.
Ken Dolsky. So if I could just ask you real quickly, what is ANJAC's position in terms of towns passing their own ordinances when there's a bill making its way through the legislature that would seem to address a lot of this? Because towns could pass one form of ordinance, and then the state passes a law, and that usually preempts what the towns do. And there's a lot of little ins and outs and catches, not catches exactly, but a lot of things that need to be considered. That one bill may have one version, of those things, and the state bill has another. So what are you recommending? Are you recommending that towns go ahead and pass their own ordinances, or wait until we see what happens at the state level?
So the previous bill that was vetoed, it was sitting on the books for quite a few years. Unfortunately, our government doesn't move very quickly. I would love for them to act quickly. It seems that the governor is interested, but we don't know. What we recommend is that towns go ahead and pass their own ordinances. In the language, if there's anything in there that indicates preemption, we are saying no, you can't cancel preemption. You know, the towns should have the flexibility to do what they would like to do. That means you cancel preemption. No, preemption is when the state has one set of laws that supersedes what the towns I'm
do.
sorry. I'm saying the towns should keep what they have going on. That's what I mean.
Okay.
So the ordinances that towns pass are grandfathered?
Yes.
Okay.
Although that's not a law either yet.
No, not yet. So since all of that is kind of up in the air, and we don't know the time frame for that, I would recommend that you act sooner rather than later. And get ahead of this.
Mr. Lott has something to say.
Right. So one of the questions that I've had, and I know if NJAC has taken a look at the kind of the legal foundation, but what's the legal foundation for a municipality to regulate in the area? The authority of municipalities to regulate in areas is usually prescribed by state statute, and this is a regulation of commerce that you typically don't see at the municipal level. I realize that you're not a lawyer, but I don't know if anybody at NJAC has thought about this. And I know that there are, and in preparation for the meeting, I did take a look at the Jersey City ordinance and the Hoboken ordinance, and Lambertville. And one of the questions that I had is, what's the legal authority for municipalities to, to do this? You can pass an ordinance to regulate anything, but it may not be lawful.
That is true. But as of now, they're all holding, and they have not been. They have, the plastics lobby group has
They
not
have
gone
not
after
been
them.
challenged
They
up
have
to
not
now.
been challenged. Thank you. Those are the words. It's getting late. Yes. So.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but.
Lawsuit will settle it.
Okay, I just want to say, we were talking just before this about our concern about some of the chemicals that were in our water.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the amount of toxins that are in these plastics that get into our waterway and get into our systems.
Absolutely.
I mean, we should
Yeah.
be just as concerned about that.
Yes.
As
yes.
we are about some of these issues we talked about tonight. And even
Yes,
more so
even more
because
so.
they don't know what the effect on human
That's right.
health is.
That's
Because they've
right.
already found it in humans.
Right. Well, listen,
Absolutely.
I have no doubt that there's a crisis here. The question is, who's the appropriate authority to regulate in the area? I have no doubt that the state has the authority to do it.
Well, I think from it's like anything else. I think you would go with your code enforcer if that's the individual. But a big portion of it, in my opinion, and our model ordinance is written this way, to look at measurement and impact and see, get your baseline data, contact DPW, how many labor hours are spent right now in cleaning up the streets and the storm drains, looking at water quality and using that sort of baseline data to go forward.
Right, because I'm sorry John's not here, but John at one of our hearings spoke about the cost to taxpayers because of the amount
Right.
of plastic that they have to handle through the system.
Right,
So
and we
that's
do.
there's a
right.
cost
Absolutely,
issue
and for your
involved here
recycling center as well,
Right.
because
And
plastic is.
municipalities do have some limited authority to regulate solid waste and for recycling.
Right, and and as I said, it is an issue, and John brought it up when he was here speaking at the budget hearings, that there.
Sure.
And as well as Chad, that this is an expense to taxpayers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So, there's a couple of issues there.
I think a lot of community members will be galvanized by this opportunity to do something differently, and also share if a store isn't following through and having, if they're giving out plastic bags when they shouldn't be. There are stores like Costco and Aldi that are very popular. They don't have any bags,
Right.
and their business model works. So this is not rocket science. It's happening in California, in DC, Ireland, lots of places with a lot of success. Yes.
Okay, first of all, please don't compare New Jersey to California, because California is a hellhole. Also,
Please
with
state-
the plastic
state your
bag,
name and
Nancy
address,
Chaffo, Nancy Chaffo, and my problem is, how unfriendly is Parsippany going to be to the businesses in town? You already bashed Dunkin' Donuts for their styrofoam cups and their plastic straws. We have Targets, we have Whole Foods coming, and they also still use plastic bags, I believe. You have all these companies selling their products, and we're bringing them home in plastic bags, and you then tell us it's our fault that we have to now go out and purchase more bags that we should reuse. Now, I reuse my own bags personally because I like not having all my stuff crushed.
Mm-hmm.
But you banned, they didn't want the paper bags that we were selling, that we made book covers out of for years, and we use those in better ways. Now, all of a sudden, plastic's this huge problem, and you want to make Parsippany very unfriendly to all the businesses here, and you're going to charge the people who are already being highly taxed. You say it's a cost to consume. It is a big cost to consumers if you're going to charge us more money for everything we buy. If you're talking per bag, maybe make a bigger size bag so we can use one bag instead of 6 bags for a few items. However, you're regulating businesses in town, and you may come in very unfriendly to those businesses. And we have so many we have Michael's and Target and just so many new ones coming up, DSW, all those bags. They're going to be here. And unless, you're going to be unfriendly to the town, you can see where it's going to save us money
So
besides using the plastic bags.
The large retailers, they got this down. I was in Hawaii.
And the consumers are going to pay the difference in the price.
So this little secret. You already do. You just don't
Yeah.
realize it. There's an uptick in the cost of milk or something else in the grocery
That's
stores.
what they told me about $15 per hour minimum wage. And I went over to Walmart today in Boonton, and 90% of their cashiers are now gone, and it's all self-checkout.
I can't speak to that business model, but what I can say, this is not a tax, it's a fee. And you can definitely avoid it by bringing your own bags. And this is the direction.
Well, a fee or a tax is the same difference as out of people's pockets. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think what you were saying, Deanie, is that, if I'm not mistaken, the retailer already puts the fee, they're not giving the bags away for free, let's
No,
face it.
no.
So they're charging you in the product
Yes.
for the bag.
Yes, somewhere in their
Right.
in their product
So,
line.
I mean, there is a charge in there. And some of the retailers, by the way, have been, in Teaneck, we had a presentation by the Girl Scouts. And the store owners were very, were very agreeable to it.
Yes.
That's why they got them all to agree, didn't they? The merchant, yeah, the merchants.
That's part of it.
Hi, Michelle Gaynor, Parsippany, and I also work with Deanie. And just to-
Miss Gaynor, can you please speak into the mic?
Just take it.
Just to address the recycling issue, I'm a huge recycler. I've done it with my kids' school. I have always recycled, but plastic doesn't go away. It is in our environment forever, as far as we know. So you can recycle all you want, which is great, and it helps, but it doesn't go away. It may break down, or it may get remade into something else. It does not go away. The other thing is, Long Beach Island, I don't know how many people go there. I go there every year. It's a huge island. They have a huge grocery store. Stopped plastic bags. I do not see anybody walking into that store complaining about it. They carry their reusable bags with them, and they all seem quite happy to do that. Not only that, did they ban or put a fee on the bags, but the restaurants have voluntarily eliminated styrofoam and straws, and they went to alternatives, paper, and I do not see anybody complaining about it, and I go there all the time. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Mr. Dolsky, we cannot.
Good. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, please keep it down. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Judy Hernandez. I just want to, 5 Moraine Road in Parsippany. I just want to make a statement. So, the Parsippany Environmental Advisory Committee and the Parsippany Library are presenting a documentary film on this issue of plastic ocean. So this conversation can go on, and maybe everybody can, well, come. It's supposed to be a fabulous documentary. I haven't seen it myself. It's about an hour and a half. A Plastic Ocean documents the newest science, proving how plastics, once they enter the oceans, break up into small particulates that enter the food chain where they attract toxins like a magnet. These toxins are stored in the seafoods, fatty tissues, and eventually consumed by us, and then stored in us. So come out and just check out the movie. This is really important that we're talking about this, especially after we had the water quality discussion, because we get a lot of our water from the ground. And this eventually, this and other pollutants are in our aquifer. And so we are consuming toxins and VOCs.
What is the date on that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say the date. It's Wednesday, October 10th, 6:30 to 8:30 at the Parsippany Main Library on Halsey Road. 6:30 to 8:30.
Do you know if that's up on our webpage?
Yeah.
Is it?
I think it is. I think it is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, and
Check.
we're
Yeah,
gonna have
yeah.
information going out.
Okay.
At the Fall Festival, we're gonna
Good.
have little
Yeah, make
cards.
sure it gets to.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excuse me, by show of hands, how many more people are interested in coming up and asking questions? I just need to see a quick show of hands, please. Okay, so 1, 2. Okay, I'm just trying to keep this meeting in the interest of time. We have a very heavy agenda, so,
I don't
okay.
have a question, I have a remark, so is it appropriate?
No, the remark, keep that for public session.
Do you have a question, sir, or a remark?
Question.
Okay, come on up.
Eric Densmore, Lake Hiawatha. Quick question. The examples that you gave, because I'm not familiar with the picture where the whale swallowed the 27 or 28 bags, where did that actually occur?
China.
And would you say China's environmental standards are similar to ours?
So this is, once it goes into the ocean, all of it is connected. This is entirely connected. We can't say that the plastic stays on in this one section and doesn't go to the other part of the world. All the water is connected.
All right. But
I think the U.S. is one of the largest polluters, if I'm not mistaken.
We are not one of the
China?
largest. Well, no, not Indonesia. I mean, there are
They
other,
doesn't stay in China.
because of a lack of waste management infrastructure, there are countries that have more pollution. However, the U.S. also has mismanagement, and so we also have pollution that enters into our oceans. And when you look at world recycling rates throughout on plastic recycling, the number is so low. Only 9% of plastic ever gets recycled. That's extraordinarily low.
Well, one of the things that Chad brought up last week when he spoke was that China now is not taking our waste.
That's right.
So I don't know,
Yes.
and there's a decision on what we're going to do with it, because we've been sending our waste to China.
Yes.
And China now is not taking it anymore.
That's right.
So that's
They-
going to be an issue for us
It's a
as
huge
well.
issue.
Yeah.
There are some counties that are no longer accepting a large plastic recycling. They're only taking 1s and 2s, so they've had to cut back on their program and not take 3s and 5s that they've taken in the past.
Yeah.
Because of China's policy of not accepting or contaminated plastic recycling.
Okay. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Venezia, 102 Brooklawn Drive. There's one store that I go to. They use plastic bags, but they claim that it's made out of organic material that is biodegradable. Is that acceptable? Is that an acceptable bag?
So the biodegradable bioplastics, that's a whole category in itself as far as the conversation. I'm going to keep it really quick. The probably not, because unless your bag goes into a commercial composter, it doesn't make a difference. Once it goes into a landfill, it's going to degrade the same way as a regular bag.
Just marketing.
No.
Yeah, just marketing is right.
All right.
All right, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Lott?
I have nothing.
Business Administrator? Ellen?
I see that the way the agenda is, right after my brief discussion, Stanberry is going to make a presentation, so I will be very brief. I did bring with me as luck would have it, after the meeting of the 12th, we had, John Walker had written to me, Ellen Sandman, I got it on September 13th, and what it was the water quality accountability, which he was referring to, and I think I sent it to some council people so that they would see. Mr. Walker is, and it gets signed by the mayor, he has to put in the affirmative that we do not have any volatiles in our water system. The first one is compliance with the federal state drinking water regulations, and the answer was yes, they're in compliance. And the second one had to do with the state. If Mr. Walker says to the contrary, and then we're proven wrong, it's not a slap on the hand. Mr. Walker goes away. So I mean, that's the sincerity and the seriousness, just simply put. And again, you can see how very dedicated he is and very cautious in saying, to the best of my knowledge. But the man is someone that I've known for a long time. He worked under Kevin the former water director, and these men, this is a sacred trust to them, and I think Mike, who's been here forever, knows that. And the other one is the consumer report, and one of the things he was concerned about, we changed our webpage, and now we're back on track with an obligation that he committed to the state, that when you put in those call letters of the WW, whatever it is, one press and you're in and you get this consumer report. And again, he speaks very softly, and again, I don't. So what I want to also say is we are under an obligation, even if it's a slight trace, and we did receive from, not that we utilize them, but in the area, we got something from another water purveyor, and they said, we just have to let you know. And then in the document itself, it said, the first one said, we are not saying this is of an emergency nature, you don't have to boil water, da-da. However, but also because it's a making sure that people who are pregnant or have deficiencies in their system to check with your doctor, because this one element. So it's very regulated, and it's very, and we don't do, we have outside testing. So I just want to assure people that, I was concerned about how it was raised at the last meeting, and anyway, I'm glad John did a very good job, and I know he got a chance to talk to Bob. So I don't have anything more. There may be something that is raised from the people that come up, and I'll wait to answer them. I believe there's some people in the audience that we addressed on certain issues.
Thank you.
And I'll wait till then. Thank you.
Stanberry.
Okay, at this time, we'll have Stanberry.
Could you do your magic with the lights? Or does he know how to do that?
It's already on. Oh.
Guess not. It's just,
May have turned it down.
Hello. There we go. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Mark Potchmet with Stanberry Development. Started Stanberry Development with my partner John Meyer 18 years ago as a retail development company. As you see here, we're ended up being pretty active in New Jersey. Our first project we did was the shops at Union Hill down in Denville. We like to think that we kind of raised the bar on retail development on the Route 10 corridor. And since then, we developed several lifestyle centers after that. With the internet, the Amazon shopping, online shopping, we decided to transform our company and found opportunity in Parsippany. Very familiar, obviously, with the Route 10 corridor and the possibilities that exist there. What we have here, we think, is an opportunity to transform a 1980s vacant office building into a really vibrant, extraordinary mixed-use project, which we call the District at 1515. So you see what we're envisioning here, as I said, a mix of uses. It all starts at the ground floor with the retail component. This will be developed in two phases. The first phase, roughly 65,000 square feet of retail, and roughly 275 residential units above. Integral to that whole thing, it's developed around a public open space that the center kind of revolves around. The collection of our tenants in the shops at Union Hill was very fashion oriented. That was our anchor. Today it's transformed into the more experiential retail. So there's a lot of restaurants in this. There is your boutique fitness, your boutique yoga, spinning, smaller fitness shops, services, and then some fashion to go along with that. The second phase is on the back side. There is an additional roughly 30 to 35,000 square feet of retail, similar uses. It provides the end cap to the town center portion, the public open space, and an additional 166 units for a total of 441. The town center portion you see here, we have the opportunity to close that off on occasion to vehicular traffic, to have events like farmers market, arts festivals, and the like. That'll be done on off-peak hours, but once again, it's really to provide the more or less the outdoor living room for Morris County, for Parsippany, for these residential units that sit above the project. The millennials that we're looking to attract love, and the empty nesters as well, love to be able to walk down from their units and enjoy a coffee, a cocktail, a burger, an event in the open space. But having that proximity is really what drives them. And that also is going to provide a great amenity, we think, to the regional office market. Their workers are looking for these types of activities, and the office market are also looking to hire the people that we believe will live here. Those people are currently moving to Hoboken and Jersey City, downtown Morristown, to be close to the action. We're trying to create that here in Parsippany and create that amenity not just for Parsippany and Morris County, but also for the office market. This here just depicts the Phase 1 project. We would take down both of the office buildings. Surface parking would be maintained on the far side. We would do structured parking underneath the residential building. We would do the town center as a portion of it. And then the Phase 2 component, this is a little bit outdated drawing, I apologize for that, but as you come in between our project and Delta Dental, I have a laser pointer? We have a roundabout that we're showing here. There will be a second roundabout now in this jug handle connection. The jug handle connection is a very important piece of this project. That eliminates traffic going to the 202 intersection. So it reduces traffic at that intersection. All the traffic coming to our project, Delta Dental, and the Octagon building currently goes through the Mack-Cali campus and down the 202 intersection and through that intersection and back to get to these properties. Now they will hit the roundabout on the far side, come around under Route 10 and enter the project directly. So that is going to take some pressure off of the 202 intersection. Additionally, the direct connection back to the Mack-Cali campus is going to provide amenity for those workers over there to be able to come over and have lunch, exercise, in close proximity to their work. And I believe, where is that one? I believe that is it. So thank you very much. We've got a very talented collection of consultants that we have assembled to get to where we are today. They've been working very closely with the town's equally talented consultants. So we thank you for that. And with that, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Ed.
That's okay with the Council President?
Sure, yes.
Thank you. Just give me a second to change slides.
Mr. Stichels, before you start.
Yes.
Was mentioned 441 units for Phase 1 and Phase 2. Are any of those units going to be COA or affordable housing, and what is the number on those apartments?
That's a good question, and I'll cover that in my presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Which I think is a very, very important point. Thank you. Good evening. Ed Stichels with the firm of Burgess Associates. We're professional planners retained by the Township of Parsippany in order to amend the redevelopment plan. If this council recalls, we were here about a year ago where we talked about the redevelopment plan that was instituted for this property. That redevelopment plan was approved and is in place today. What the redevelopment plan does for the purposes of the audience is that it sets aside specific zoning relative to that specific property. It enables municipalities through the local redevelopment and housing law to enact a redevelopment plan that has those specific requirements in them. And then part and parcel with that, as Councilwoman Regnani just identified, is that we can also institute a set-aside requirement, what we call in the trade a set-aside for affordable housing. And that is an issue that we'll be grappling with over the next year, year and a half, as we discuss the issue of the housing element and fair share plan. Every municipality in New Jersey has to deal with that issue of housing for affordable means. And Parsippany throughout the years has actually approved various housing elements and fair share plans, instituted them through zoning. We had various developments pay development fees so we can contribute to a regional contribution to other municipalities to help build affordable housing. And one of the purposes for this redevelopment plan is also to do that as well. And as Mr. Potchman just pointed out with Stanberry, Stanberry is the proposed redeveloper of this property. They went first. I'm sorry, it sounded a little bit disjointed for the purposes of the public, so you have a little bit of a background. Where Stanberry comes in is that they are the property owners and also looking to be the designated redevelopers of the property. In the redevelopment and housing law, it enables municipalities to get very specific as far as who actually the redeveloper would be to realize the redevelopment plan. And then what we do in that process also, as I mentioned, under the local redevelopment and housing law, or sometimes referred to as the LRHL, is we establish that specific criteria relative for the development. The site area has been identified. It's on 1515 Route 10. It's known as Block 200, Lot 1.02. It's about 11-acre parcel in Parsippany Troy Hills. The area was designated as an area in need under the process back in September of 2015. Redevelopment plan, as I mentioned last year, actually that should say 2017, excuse me, was adopted August 22nd, 2017. We're now here tonight to talk about amendment to that plan, and that's the purpose for my presentation. In accordance with the actual amendment process, you need to have a public hearing. This is effectively the public hearing to discuss the amendment to that plan. And really what we're looking at in the amendment, it's a very specific amendment focused just on the affordable housing obligation in the development. The total obligation amount of the number of units that are proposed for development, the 441, does not change. The requirements, if it's a rental community, is a 15% set aside. If it's a for sale condominium development, it's a 20% set aside. So what that set aside means is for the total number of units, there's a certain number of units that have to be inclusionary, and or there has to be a fee paid, which is what we're talking about tonight with regard to the amendment. Under that amendment, we're also talking about obligation mechanisms. The mechanisms available to a developer to achieve that obligation. And as we talked about, there is a requirement of the 15% or 20%. The purpose of this amendment is actually to add another mechanism to that process. In the amendment, up to 50% of the obligation can be a payment to the township's housing trust fund. Parsippany Troy Hills, for those who may not know, has a housing trust fund that we've been collecting money from various developers and developments towards payment towards improvement to affordable housing, whether it's existing affordable housing within the community or it's future affordable housing in the community. You may have heard this council talk about actual group homes that we've contributed to help realize those group homes and develop them within the community. And these are all mandated and controlled by the former entity called COA. It's still in existence, but yet it's been highly diluted. And that in order for the township to achieve what's called its third round certification, as I mentioned before, we've met the other rounds of certification. We have to address the court on this issue. The courts have taken the control from the state agency because they were deemed ineffective. And now we have to address our issues to the court. But the courts have specifically said, use the COA rules that were established in the second round. One of the mechanisms that's available under the COA rules, as what we're talking about tonight, is this permission to payment to a housing trust fund. It's a payment in lieu of constructing units. What we're making very specific about this project, though, is any payment is going to go to what's called a market to affordable program in our housing plan as we establish it. In that market to affordable program, what we're enabling is actually the ability to get existing homes and or existing rental properties to be converted to affordable units by payments to those specific property owners or landlords if it's a rental community. And what we're looking to do is to establish that as part of one of the mechanisms. Again, there's many different approaches in order to address our affordable housing requirement. So that is one provision that's being put forth tonight in the amendment to the redevelopment plan. When I talk about the redevelopment plan, it's a comprehensive document. It's currently dated, amended September 10th, 2018. And that's what the council is considering in a resolution this evening. The trust fund goes again to that would fund the market to affordable program. A market to affordable funds existing units to become affordable in the township. And that's going to be a specific requirement of the court that it has to be within the municipality in order for us to gain the credits associated with that, as well as the appropriate needs of people who are in need of affordable housing. The planning board actually last evening reviewed the amendment that's before the council this evening and did find that there were several findings that effectuate the master plan. If you recall, back in July of last year, again, the planning board also recommended the redevelopment plan for adoption by this council. So with this, what we're talking about is specifically that amendment to the redevelopment plan. Again, a little bit out of order, but maybe to help give you closure in the audience as to where Mr. Potschmidt was talking about. This is the Stanbury property. This is the tract. This is actually a municipal boundary line. This is Dryden Way, you may know, on Route 10. The Matt Cali Business Campus is up towards the top of the page, up in this area. This is the Hilton Parsippany across Route 10. Delta Dental, as was mentioned, is across this common drive that currently serves the existing office building that's there. What we've realized in the master plan through the various master plan efforts of the planning board and also this council is that we have to start thinking about our business campuses differently. Many times back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the thing was to build office buildings, and it became very, very successful. Parsippany is actually its own region as far as office market is concerned. But what we realized and identified in the master plan is that Parsippany, as well as many other communities throughout New Jersey, have seen a significant decline in the office tenancy market because, as Mr. Potschmidt just pointed out earlier, many of these businesses are pursuing, God bless you, are pursuing moving to the urban areas where the younger millennial or education levels are also moving to. And so what that has done is drawn away from your current office market. And so what we're trying to do is rethink, in effect, and to coin a phrase from a very popular book, is rethink suburbia from the standpoint of how we would go about encouraging and improving our existing office market. Our office market is very important to the community. It provides that balance in your tax base. It also provides very, very good high-tech jobs for the community, helping to reduce commuting and things of that nature. And Parsippany being a regional location, it's optimum for those particular uses. But what we're also seeing is an opportunity now to rethink these communities and office parks and also allow for other uses associated with them. And I think that's what this redevelopment plan brings with it. It requires a mixed-use development. As Mr. Potschmidt just pointed out earlier, you would have a mixture of commercial uses and residential uses in one location, creating sort of a center within the community and a center within that business campus. It has a shared outdoor public area. We thought that was very important. We didn't want to see just another strip commercial center. What was important in the redevelopment plan is to have a shared outdoor area. Also an important element is for having non-residential on the ground level, retail, restaurant, and other commercial uses. But that also have housing on the upper floors. Not only housing, but also inclusionary housing. So it wouldn't be 100%. it would be that 15 or 20% requirement. We would also have very specific development criteria associated with that. Ideas of ways of sharing the parking from the standpoint of visitor parking for the residential, and that's in the redevelopment plan, but also very specific architectural guidelines. So we're not just allowing for anything to happen at this location, something that requires breaks in buildings, window fenestrations, various detailing as far as materials on buildings. Because we understand that this is a mixed-use development, it needs to have those appropriate guidelines so that it achieves that final effect. Some of the procedural requirements, the plan with this amendment to the redevelopment plan, there's administrative requirements, but also there will be a future site plan submission. Tonight is only for that redevelopment plan amendment. And that site plan submission will be a process before the planning board for review and analysis. In that analysis will be a very specific traffic analysis. As Mr. Potchman was just pointing out, they're looking at Dryden Way for one of their main access drives. That has to be a specific component studied thoroughly in order to make sure it works. Also having infrastructure analysis, whether it's water and sewer, because I know we talked about water this evening. So we have to make sure that that's available, there's appropriate quantities, and it doesn't cause an undue impact to our systems. Also a phased approach to development. You've heard earlier that there'll be a phase 1 and a phase 2 component to that. Also, we want this to also be coordinated with Hanover Township. If you recall the aerial photograph that I showed earlier, there's actually a municipal boundary line runs right through a portion of the tract. And that municipal boundary line was something of a specific coordination item we wanted to make sure was discussed and coordinated with Hanover Township. Hanover Township has designated their portion in need of redevelopment. I think they're about to discuss their redevelopment plan component for their portion of the tract as well. So here you have two municipalities that are looking to coordinate together the effective redevelopment of a specific piece of property. And as you heard Mr. Potchman go through the design, I won't go through that in great detail, but that's really an analysis, an overview of the redevelopment plan, where we were, where we are, and what the amendment actually includes. And so with that, I could turn it over to Mr. Hanley if that's the next sequence you'd like to cover.
Ed, I don't know if this is a question for you or for Mr. Hanley. When you had said what we're going to be discussing and looking at this amendment, the 50%, which would go into a fund that we could use to purchase or subsidize. So for the public out there, to make it simple for them, for instance, we could use those funds to subsidize, let's say, existing apartments, units. So in turn, that would help us as a town having to construct new units, more construction. We can use existing apartments that are already up and have been up in this town, which we know we have more than any other town in the county.
Exactly.
And we could use those funds to subsidize some of those apartment units to meet our requirement.
You summarized it very well, and it's accurate. as far as
And I
how
think
we
important, I'm glad you started it, because the other part of that is, if we split in half, say, for want of a number, 64, and we're talking about 33 or whatever, X amount of dollars, and I guess Mike might be going into that. The value is that instead of only getting an additional 33 on the site, it could actually develop with the money to 100 units, as you
Right.
said,
And
in-house
it's just-
already.
It's just less development
Yes.
we need to do in the town to meet the COA regulations.
But it
So-
could triple the
Right.
the number.
The credits.
In fact,
Right.
the
Credits that we
yeah.
get,
Right.
yeah.
And
Which
in
I
fact,
think is a
this
win-win.
crediting system you're talking about, while the numbers have not been specifically finalized in our litigation that we're undergoing with the court, and there's not a lot I can talk about regarding that, but in some instances, you may even get a 2-for-1 credit. If in fact they're rental units, you do get some rental bonuses. If we haven't achieved, there's a ceiling that they allow you to apply those credits to. But yet, there could be some of that as well. I just wanted to put that all
Yeah,
on
I
the
just wanted to have
table
that out
so
for
we
the
can-
public so that,
Yeah.
you know, they would know that that could help us.
There's a
It's a good point.
there's an application for that in the near term that I see. If we could subsidize existing apartments, which is what you were talking
That's
about.
right,
In the last month, I've had phone calls from two senior citizens. Their husbands have passed away. Now with one Social Security check, they're getting evicted from their apartments. They cannot afford to pay the rent. We could help these people out if we had subsidized some units in an
absolutely.
apartment.
And to use those funds.
Absolutely. As long
The
as
other
they're
good
income
news.
qualified, I just always have to
The other
qualify
good news that should be stated is you're talking about getting approval by the courts, and Leslie London has given great news today, which is they approved our spending plan, which incorporates this concept. So we got approval from the courts to do this.
Well, I think that could definitely help our seniors that their incomes have been going down, but they want to stay in Parsippany. This is could be a great program for them.
And in my opinion, I think it also helps your younger population that are looking to get started in a community. They may not be able to afford a home or some of the rent levels, depending upon where they are in their life.
Right.
As they maybe have just got out of college, they may have loans that they have to pay back. They may be income qualified as well. So keep that in mind as well.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. I'll turn it over to Mike. Hugh, you up first?
Yeah. My name is Mike Hanley. I work for NW Financial Group. I'm the financial consultant to the township. I'm going to skip over the project information slide because I think it's been covered twice now. This negotiation has been going on for almost 10 months now between Stanberry and this administration. And this administration had some very specific goals for its professionals in trying to determine how it might move forward in the context of this redevelopment. The most important goals were to maximize revenue to the municipality, minimize incremental costs to the budget, take care of the co-obligations, which we've spent a bunch of time on, improve the infrastructure and improve it quickly, and spent a lot of time on the design and getting a good project for the town, and finally getting some participation for organized labor. So this project is going to be requesting financial assistance from this township in order to move forward. It's something that happens around the state, both urban and suburban areas, from Jersey City to Bridgewater to Bound Brook, Hackensack, Union Township. The economics of multifamily residential housing, in particular, when there's need for structured parking and need to include affordable housing, creates financial stress on a project. And the tool that's available to us is the payment in lieu of tax. A market transaction would need yields, and when I say yields, I'm talking about the net revenue after paying expenses divided by the project cost. So in this case, in a conventional tax scenario, the project would have a yield of about 5%. Now that and a single-digit internal rate of return. That's not commercially acceptable. That type of a project would not be built and would not go forward. So part of the negotiation was to determine a pilot level that was appropriate, that would allow the project to go forward but maximize revenue to the township. After many months and starting at a level that was around 8%, the developer has agreed to look at an average of around 10% of revenue for a pilot number. They've also added, we added a significant number of minimums
Right.
that the developer will have to pay regardless of the performance of the project, including there's a minimum in each year of the agreement, and there's a minimum net revenue to the town when the project's stabilized of $1 million. COA was discussed, but it's a two-phase project, and in each phase there will be affordable units built that are included in the project, and there will also be payments both on the residential side and the commercial side, in each case being paid at building permit and at temporary CO that would total $3.3 million when both phases are completed. Municipal services, the developer has agreed to waive their Kelly Act rights, which means that specific to solid waste, recycling, street lighting, and snow removal, the town will not have the responsibility of providing those services in this redevelopment project.
Can I ask you a question there?
Yes.
The access road from Dryden Way into the property, is that going to be the town's responsibility to clean and maintain, or the developer?
That'll be the developer's
Yeah.
responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all on them.
I didn't see that spelled out anyplace.
Okay, no, it's good to ask because it's another thing that they've taken on.
So, you know, the exhibit on the right is to get a sense of how today's existing residents will benefit from the project. We're expecting net revenue of about $1.1 million when this is stabilized initially, and obviously to the extent the rents increase, the revenue will increase as well. The market units are likely to produce between 20 and 25 school children. The cost of classroom instruction in the township, we're projecting at $10,600. It's currently in like the $9,500 range, which would create a cost of between $215,000 and $265,000 to the schools. There's a likely cost of between $150,000 and $200,000 for public safety, and other incremental costs of between $500,000 and $75,000. That creates a net revenue to the into the budget that does not have to be raised from the existing taxpayer of between $500,000 and $700,000. Some other significant negotiating points that the town has worked through: the RAB funded improvements, which are the infrastructure, will require prevailing wage. The design improvements that discussed and worked on for a couple of years now. All of the infrastructure improvements related to the traffic will be done as part of phase 1. And the redeveloper has offered to name the public space Stickley Plaza.
Excuse me, the RAB program that you're talking about, do we have any monetary figure on that?
Yeah, the total RAB dollars is approximately $6.5 million, and they'll be issued in each phase. If we go back, the net $1 million to you is after debt service has, you know, the debt service for the RAB is the third line from the bottom, and there's a line RAB debt service. So the expectation is that there'll be about $420,000 in annual debt service over the life of the loan, and that
Yes.
after paying that debt service, you are netting the $1 million that you see on the screen.
Okay. For people that don't know what a RAB is, could you explain what that is, please?
Sure. RAB is a redevelopment area bond, and the law allows you to pledge a portion of pilot payments to make the project financially feasible. So that $400,000 is a pledge of a portion of the $1.8 million that would be coming in, and it's taken out of the pilot and given to the trustee to repay the bonds.
But the RAB itself, I think this is where you want to go. And the next thing is, because Michael keeps pushing me, do you know, it's going to be being utilized, we're going to be utilizing the Morris County Improvement Authority.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the RAB will finance the public infrastructure improvements, water, sewer, and roadway, correct?
Correct.
And we have the approval? We have all the approvals?
All we have to do is write a letter and requesting it, and they did not have any objection. I spoke to the attorney as well as the chairman of the Morris County Improvement Authority.
It may require a resolution. I need
Yeah.
to talk to Mr. Perlman and counsel for the Improvement Authority about that.
I ask two questions about the affordable housing solution? The first one is, in order to entice young people to come, I'm wondering if the student loan debt ratio is considered as part of an income qualification statement.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think income is income.
Mhm.
Then your debts.
And my second question is the subsidy that we would pay on an existing apartment, is that in perpetuity?
Mrs. Snipes?
Yeah.
That's a somewhat complex
The sub-
question.
You're talking about the revenue that we're taking in, is it in perpetuity?
No, I think this
No,
is the
I
market to
mean-
affordable program.
Yeah, the market to affordable
Okay.
program.
Sorry, I'm jumping around.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
okay.
I don't
I
know
think
the
in answer to you, when you answer, Ed, just also remind the council too that we just hired somebody that it does that, so.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would properly vet any of the applicants. I'm not certain if in fact the debt ratio works into their.
And specifically
affordable.
student loan debt. I'm
Right.
not interested in voluntary debt.
It'd be important to make sure that that's the case. I
Yeah,
wish that
right.
would be the case, being a parent of 2 children who just graduated college. So I understand that. But at the same time, regarding the actual units that we would be funding, we require a deed restriction. Typically, and I'll defer to legal on this, but usually it's for a period of 30 years.
Right,
Yeah.
a minimum of
Of course,
30
it's a
years.
minimum of 30 years.
Yeah.
So that is why, and COA, I say COA, but the courts will, and the court master will require that provision of any monies spent from the Housing Trust Fund, because they want to ensure that the units are staying affordable to people who need the units. And so we get the proper credits through this cycle.
I have this nagging precedent that I would like to just put out there if you have any insight. The Battery Park City Authority assured Manhattan residents that the money generated from the creation of Battery Park City, which was the landfill from the construction of the World Trade Center site, would be used for affordable housing in New York City, and it was a beautiful presentation, and not a single dollar has ever been used for affordable housing. And so what
Yeah.
are the stopgap measures that we put in place to ensure that there's not an emergency here, a broken here, a this there, that it's, we have this money here and we'll pay it back, but ultimately 40 years later, we have no evidence that that's ever going to be the case.
Right. Very good question. As Ms. Sandman just pointed out, the courts require us to submit a spending plan. We did submit a spending plan saying we were going to establish this market to affordable program. They approved that plan, but yet there's still caveats. We have to submit how that money is going to be spent. And actually, every year, you have to actually account for the units that are actually receiving this money. And actually, the consultant that was hired, it'll be their job to make sure that those units are being marketed, number one, but also being used by people with affordable housing limitations.
So there's some sort of spending balance sheet that would be accessible to the public to ensure that all dollars that were accumulated and spent were within the parameters that we are establishing tonight.
Yes.
Right.
That's
Absolutely, and that's the
absolutely
difference.
correct, yeah.
There's
That's the
actually
difference.
a number of
Fiduciary
mechanisms.
responsibility to
Right.
take, it's a sacred trust.
Right.
Jim?
So, I mean, as Mr. Stikus indicates, right, there's a requirement that we have to monitor and report on an annual basis, right? And then in addition to that, there's also a requirement that a deed restriction be filed on the property.
Yeah.
So, you know, every instrument for which we spend our affordable housing dollars on will have to reflect in title that the property has received the benefit of the Affordable Housing Trust money. And then, you know, it's also typical that any lease that's executed with a tenant who receives the benefit, the lease also requires a similar covenant that, you know, makes the public aware of the fact that the unit has been subsidized.
Right.
So, again, I don't think I heard the answer. Originally, they set aside how many units for affordable housing?
It was 15%, which was 67.
67, and now this is saying, well, we're going to reduce that to,
Be 50% of that number, but what we're actually showing in this current
So you're saying, what,
computations
33?
is 34.
34?
It was actually
33 will be
67 and a
something.
half, and
Right.
the redeveloper here has agreed to round up to 68.
Right.
And there'll be 34 units constructed on site, and then 33 units will be subject to the payment in lieu of construction provision.
And we have a number of $75,000, right, to that. So,
Correct.
and again, I don't want it to be lost. The 33 or 34 units that will be off-site, it's not just to put them off-site. We're talking about the opportunity to have an additional 100 units.
That's correct.
3 times that number, based on this
Market to affordable.
market to affordable. So
Credits.
that is phenomenal, I
Credits.
think.
Credit.
Right?
Credits.
Correct.
Not actual units.
Not
correct.
actual
Yeah,
units.
yeah.
Not actual units, correct. And,
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
right.
Where did
Yeah.
the 75,000 per unit number come
Yeah,
from?
that was my next question.
Well,
How did you
I
calculate
guess I
that?
brought that number up and they bought it.
But I mean, is it a calculation?
It's
but I
not
mean-
based on a COA background.
I think we got, well, I believe we got more than what the going rate was, not on bill.
So
not on
Mr.
bill
Hanley can
unit.
probably explain
Yeah.
how we
Yeah,
arrived at
it was a
75.
negotiated number
Yeah.
to try and get a sufficient amount of dollars because we want
Well,
to
yeah, what's
get
the basis for that, though? The basis for it?
well, it's, you know, it's cost to rehab apartments.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we think that the cost of rehab apartments is significantly below the 75,000
Right, but
per
I'm saying,
unit
so
that
you
we're
developed it from,
I mean, there's a, you know, there are many towns have different numbers, higher and lower than that, and it was
so
negotiated.
did you apply it to Parsippany through some understanding of housing in the area, or, you know, I'm just trying to understand how you came up with the $75,000. Is that appropriate? Should it be more? Should it be less? How would we know that?
It's a negotiated number. I mean, you know, like, every unit's going to be different, but, you know, towns go from 25,000 up to 120,000. There's not a big difference in rehab costs from town to town.
Okay.
But I think also the specialist that we also hired, after we were talking not about new built, said that the $75,000 was a good number. I mean, I'm not putting words, I mean, that's what I
You said?
talked to
I
Randy.
think it's a very good number,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
many towns get less than
Much
that.
less, yeah.
So we're talking about this trust fund. How much is in the trust fund now?
Maybe about 4.5 million, 5 million, something like that nature.
Okay, and the trust fund,
And we've been utilizing that over.
how much was used to date? Over what period of
Oh,
time?
you give me a call last night, I would have had it for you,
Yeah, I'm
but I
just
don't have it off the
wondering-
top.
I'm
This
just
number is, can be, you know, certainly given, but certainly what we've done with the money, as Ed has talked, over the course of, we were waiting on decisions to be made in courts. We pursued, you know, housing for special needs and pursued that, and some of that funding has been
There's several
placed on that.
ARC homes in
Yeah,
town that
yeah.
received that money.
Yeah.
Cheshire Home received that
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
Is it New?
Well, Newbridge
Newbridge.
through another
Newbridge.
program,
Yeah.
Community Hope and others.
They come to the council meetings and ask for funds when they're developing a new home. And we use that money for that.
Yeah, I just.
And we get credit for that.
I just like to understand how much is in the fund, how much we've used, and what are the requirements to use it?
Okay, I will get all that information, but I think Ed can talk to the requirements. They're very strict.
Sure.
And that's why every time we had to modify something, I mean, I could go back in history and talk about the money grab, but I won't do that. But I will say this, that the fact that we are so monitored and how this money is utilized, we talked about we have to go back and modify a spending plan. I've only been here 4 years, and we've modified the spending plan at least 3 times since I'm here, and it's a big undertaking. So what
Right.
that spending plan monitoring is doing is they're taking a look at every dollar and where those dollars went. Ed?
Right. Just before he answers, just, you know, as a general matter of law, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money can only be spent in furtherance of creating realistic opportunity for low and moderate income people. Now, that can be done a variety of ways, and that's why we have the spending plan, which Mr. Slankus will tell you, but it can be used for such things as mortgage rental assistance, down payment assistance, a direct rental subsidy. It can finance the cost of rehabilitation. We're also able to take our township administrative services fee for running the affordable housing program out of the trust fund, but I'm sure Mr. Slankus has some other examples.
You can actually build affordable units.
actually build
Yeah.
units, right.
Do 100%
You can build
affordable
around,
development.
Have we done that?
No, we have not.
Okay, and have we had any conversations with these owners of garden apartments that they'd be amenable to turning over some of their units to affordable housing units?
You tell me what I could say. Because
Yeah.
some of
So
that is
we're-
behind
Yeah,
the
yeah.
veil of the court
Yeah.
proceedings,
Yeah.
and I don't
Right.
want to.
Yeah.
And we've
plagiarize.
retained, then council approved this recently, we've retained a consultant to help us in that process. One of the other things I will note is that the township may have not built new affordable housing, but we have allowed not-for-profits to purchase property
Yeah.
that was then allowed for the construction of affordable housing.
Very similar mechanism.
Yeah. Well, my only question is if we already have the units available to us in this particular development, then why would we take part of that money and go out and try other ways to use it? I mean, we've got them here. Why don't we just
Because
leave-
again, 33 units can very easily turn into 100 units.
Credits.
Correct.
Credits,
That's
not
on,
units.
that's a guaranteed, we know that for
That's
certain.
credits, not units.
Credits.
That's correct.
Units.
All right, so I mean, the actual crediting is obviously going to be subject to court approval, but the way that the Mount Laurel program has worked historically is that, there'll be bonus credits available depending on how the rental income restrictions are structured and who the target populations are that will be served.
Yeah.
And I
those
know
cre-
you keep saying credits, but they're units. They're
That's
also
correct.
units.
That's
It's
units,
not,
right.
it's credits, but it's units.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
How many units is that per credit?
Well, it all depends on the income restrictions and the populations that will be served.
I will tell you that you'll have at least 33. At
Yeah.
least.
Well, I just
Yeah.
want to
At
know
least.
what I think,
Yeah.
I think it's rational to ask the question, what our
Yeah.
experience is with this? That we're just not saying, well, we'll set this aside, and then we're moving forward and requiring more development to reach our goal. That's my concern. How quickly have we used these funds? How available are those funds to us to create these units?
Oh, the funds
I mean,
are available.
Funds are
that's-
available.
Yeah, I know they're available, but as we said, there's a process and there's a cost to it.
And that we just got
So-
approval for that process to proceed.
And
And
the
I
co-
can say, while we're moving forward in this, since we have this gentleman already hired to do it, we don't have to wait for this also, because there is money in there. And Jim, bear me out, can't we start the program, I don't want to say tomorrow, but, as we pursue our housing obligations, we have it set up.
Well, the spending plan's been approved,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
have a consultant,
Yeah.
to help us put
Yeah.
together the program.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing
So
it.
that existing account of $4.5
Yeah,
million
yeah.
could be
Correct.
utilized.
Absolutely,
Yes, right.
yes.
Some of that. Because
Yeah, some of it we
it's
can't
also
do, yeah,
required
yeah.
under the rules to be used for other purposes.
Other purposes,
So,
but
I
there's
only
still
say that
sufficient
because I wanted to
funding
make sure
there.
you're clear.
Got it, thank you.
Well, I just have another question, though. This plan with the 67, this is based on the 67 units?
68, or whatever it is.
It's based on 34 units and $3.3 million of
Yeah.
funds.
That revenue is based on 33 units, not 67?
No, because we're,
Split in half.
34 units are being replaced by $75,000 a unit.
Yeah, I know, but then that increases the revenue to the developer on the project, right?
Yes,
reducing
that
the
is the
amount-
economics of the project that's
Yeah, what I'm saying
proposed, which
is it the affordable housing that's being now marketable
yes,
increases revenue for the developer?
correct, and that's the revenue that
Right.
that you see.
So, does that change the arrangement at all? Or change the calculation on what,
It would if it wasn't already in the numbers. Like
Yeah.
that's the calculation.
that's what the
Based
33,
on the
this
deal.
is the 33.
Yeah.
Yes, and,
So
and
this was done, and then we were asked to amend it? This wasn't part of the amendment? This was done before or after the amendment?
this is
The process.
the amendment is required to
Okay, because
execute
I'm just
this
saying
program.
we saw this a couple of months ago, so I'm just wondering, or a month or so ago, we talked about this, right?
Correct. Yeah, this has been
And-
part of a 10-month
Yeah.
process of
Okay.
getting to here.
So that was in there when we talked about it, so it's not changing the numbers?
No, it hasn't created additional revenue. But if I can clarify the point about why dollars are valuable,
Yeah.
it's incredibly hard to build affordable housing new construction because the cost of new construction is very high, and the state has a very small number of available tax credits because they've been taken up for many years by Sandy dollars. So it is 4% tax credits, which is what you can get, don't get you new construction units because the gap is too big. You know, the gap's more in new construction is more like 120,000 a unit. But rehab, you know, it can be between 40 and 75 a unit. And that's how you get a greater number of units from the dollars you're receiving.
Mr. Hanley, you'll have to speak up a little bit. I think the people in the back of the room are having a hard time
Yeah.
hearing you. The acoustics here are bad.
Yeah, they're not good.
But we're only talking tonight about the housing number, right? We're not talking about anything else.
That's the only
here in the
change, right?
agreement. This was all agreed to already?
No, we
No.
have action tonight before council, for a resolution to designate Stanberry as a designated redeveloper and to authorize the execution of a redevelopment agreement. This analysis that Mr. Hanley just went through is part of that agreement.
So, yeah, but again, that the only thing I think we're discussing here is the change in that plan for this change
as-
in COA, right?
Right, so as part of the redeveloper agreement, we needed to make the redevelopment plan consistent with the analysis that Mr. Hanley just showed and consistent with the township's previously adopted spending plan in order to create the market to affordable program.
Right, but I'm saying we're not accepting the pilot and everything with this vote.
No,
are
so
we?
there is separate legal action required by council, all right? It's called the execution of a financial agreement that will be done by ordinance. But the redeveloper agreement does reference the township's obligation to move forward with the adoption of a financial agreement for the multi-phase project.
But that's not tonight.
That's not tonight.
Correct. And again, it seems that there's also some concern about, the developer making some additional funding or whatever. But I would also like to point out, we talked about, we've always been talking about a number of 450 units. When we broached this subject in our conversation, many people, and I led that, and I said, look, I think the town and the community can benefit better from monies coming into the trust fund, and I did not say because we're cutting it in half that you're going to get more units. That's why the number is 441 units, not 450, because I didn't say, oh no, I'm not taking this out, and you can put affordable, market rate units in it. So we also reduced them by 9 other units. They did not get that. Am I
Excuse
correct?
me,
in that?
sir, could you just step out in the hallway for a second? Thank you. He's on the phone.
Okay. All right. So, Mike, is that not correct? That's why the number's 441? Yeah.
Just one more question I had on that. Half of these units are gonna be built in phase one and half in phase two, or some proportion like that.
It's
exact.
proportionate to the size of the phases, so it'd be 21 units in phase one and 13 units in phase two.
Okay, then how do we calculate when do we get that money? A piece of it in phase one and a piece of it in phase two?
Yeah.
So pursuant to the redeveloper agreement, the money will be payable in a manner that is identical to the payment of the non-residential development fee on the commercial space. So half of it will be paid at the time that they file for a building permit, and then the other half will be paid upon the issuance of a TCO. And that'll occur in both phases.
That will occur in both phases?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Roughly 2 million in phase one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Good question.
All right. Thank you. Township Clerk?
Oh, I didn't know they finished the presentation. Okay, so we're done with that. Just a procedural issue I just want to announce. On page 4, ordinance number 2018:22, as we are going through the agenda, we will not be voting on that at that moment. We have a closed session at the end of the meeting, and we will come out and then proceed to vote on that after the closed session. Additionally, page 5, Resolution 2018-157 and Resolution 2018-158, the same would apply. So I just want to inform the public with regards to that so they are aware.
I just want to follow up on one question that Councilmember McCarthy had, and just so we're clear on this. I think that what Mr. Hanley's financial analysis demonstrates, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Hanley, is that the project does not move forward without the assistance of a pilot and without the assistance of RAB. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, that answered your question. I mean, the project is not financeable without those portions of the township assistance.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say the RAB is coming from
Morris County.
Morris County, so that's not our purview
Obligation.
tonight, but the pilot would be. So tonight's vote is implicitly whatever it is implicitly approving. A yes vote would be implicitly approving the pilot.
Is that right?
Yes. You know, the financing will be done as through a technique known as conduit financing. Morris County Improvement Authority has that authority. The township's full faith and credit is not pledged against the bond.
Correct.
All right. The only thing that is pledged against the repayment of the bond, all right, is a portion of the pilot payment that would otherwise be doable to the township, would otherwise be payable to the township.
So again, my question was, we're just voting on the affordable housing, but now you're saying
Well,
if we're voting on the affordable housing, we're voting on the RAB and the pilot?
No, you're voting on two things, right? You're voting on an amendment to the redevelopment plan that recognizes the market to affordable program that was just described as one of the tools that will be used to satisfy the affordable housing obligation. And then there's a separate resolution that's on for authorizing the Stanbury to be designated as the redeveloper and authorize the execution of a redevelopment agreement. That redevelopment agreement has a variety of terms and conditions, including the township's obligation to move forward with a financial agreement for the tax abatement, as well as to assist the developer at Morris County Improvement Authority to get the RAB bonds issued.
Okay, township offices, committees, reports.
I have library announcements. The Lake Hiawatha Branch Library will be open on Sunday, September 30th as part of Parsippany Street Fair celebration. In addition to our wonderful library services, special children's activities and a basket raffle for adults will be held. On Wednesday, October 10th at 6:30 p.m., the Parsippany Library, in conjunction with the Parsippany Environmental Advisory Committee, will present A Plastic Ocean, the award-winning adventure documentary. A discussion will follow the presentation of the film. Basic English and Advanced English conversation classes for adults are held on Thursday mornings beginning at 9:30 a.m. The Books and Brews Club, sponsored by the library and held at Applebee's, meets the first Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. And it's loading. Oh, come on. Subject line, one more important announcement. Today, September 25th, is National Voter Registration Day. Along with libraries throughout the country, the Parsippany Library joined in the event by having voter registration forms available at all of our locations. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bids taken. September 6, 2018, one new Type 3 Class 1 modular ambulance for Parsippany Ambulance Squad. September 13th, 2018, supplying pumps, motors, generators, HVAC units, boilers, water heaters, water storage tanks, and parts. Repairs for various departments. September 20th, 2018, replacement of lamps at the Knoll Tennis Club within Parsippany community. To be taken, October 4th, 2018, yard waste transportation and disposal recycling. October 5th, 2018, Craftsman Farms Administration building rehabilitation. And October 30th, 2018 WWTP generator improvements, quotations, proposals, qualifications. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call. Mr. DePiero is stepped out for a second. Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Okay, so the floor is open to the public on any matter.
Okay, when you come up, please state your name and address, sign in. You'll be given 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you have a minute left and 30 seconds.
Ken Dolsky, 21 Winfield Drive. First, let me apologize for shouting something out when I shouldn't have, but I hope you all heard it, and it was that Whole Foods abolished the use of plastic bags in 2008. So I don't think that they're going to be upset when they come to Parsippany and find that they won't be able to use plastic bags. Second, on affordable housing, very simple question. What have we negotiated under the new court procedure, and do we have a new target number that's settled in terms of what our additional requirements are?
The short
those the
answer,
only questions?
the short answer to that is no, we don't have a new number yet, and it's the subject of ongoing negotiations with the court, the special master, and other interested parties.
Okay, because we're talking about, feeling good about being able to have maybe 100 units, but we have no idea what we're going to be required to have. So, okay, I won't ask any more questions. I would just say, I hope that we can come up with that in a reasonable time frame, so we're operating under good information. Which leads me to the third point, so I lied, I'm sorry, it's 3, which is, I want to make another pitch, and Nick has been saying this also. We had 3 great presentations today, well, 2 great presentations, and the other one was legally required, but was certainly informative. I would like to see us have a similar presentation from the Highlands Coalition that can talk about what the implications are of conforming with the Highlands Coalition, with the Highlands Act, being in conformance, and also have a discussion of what benefits we get in terms of affordable housing obligations. The people who run the Highlands Coalition, Julia Summers and Elliot Ruga, have offered many times in the past to come and make a presentation. So I would just like to ask you to please, let them come and let them talk to you for, whatever, 15, 20, 30 minutes, and we can have discussion on those benefits to the township that people, I'm sure, are not aware of. So I encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Good evening. My name is Judith Cook, the co-owner, along with Frank and Diane Lugo, of European Wax Center. We are here.
I'm sorry, ma'am, can you just speak into the mic?
Sure. We're here to.
So you might want to just hold, yeah, there you go.
Is it working? We're here to address the devastating effect of the construction at the Troy Hills Shopping Center. We have been open for approximately 30 days. People mention that they do not know we are there, or even if we are open. Let it be noted that our lighted sign at the roof level has been replaced with a door-level temporary painted sign. I opened Denver European Wax Center in 2011 and Roxbury with the Lupos in 2013. Our current projection is off 64% from 2013 and even greater from 2011 in spite of brand awareness and huge growth. We have spoken to other small businesses that are not on the marquee. Let it be noted, only the anchors are on the marquee. And they too have noticed a critical decrease of business. We want to present this petition. They could not be here because it was suggested that we come here yesterday for today, which was very short notice. So we put together this petition asking the town to temporarily waive the sign ordinance during the construction period in hopes of maintaining business through this trying time. So in other words, we're not allowed to put any signs out.
And we're hoping for some relief temporarily while construction is underway to get our name out there and
So,
some of the other businesses to promote our business. Right now, if you looked at a 30-day revenue compared to the other 2 centers that have been open, we're all projections from those first 30 days by 64%.
So I just want to address the council for a second by way of background. About a week ago, we had another individual in that same plaza. This is the Target Plaza, right? So he came to the clerk's office and particularly exactly what they're saying. The zoning ordinances prohibit signs from being put up, certain signs from being put up in order to attract business. And so they were trying to come up with ideas as to how they can place these signs on the road in order to attract business. However, the zoning ordinance specifically prohibits all the ways they came up with. So I told the owner to come to the council and address the council about a possible exemption for about 6 months or something like that, to allow them to place signs so that it doesn't hurt their business, but also it allows the construction to continue. So this way, at the end of the day, it's a win-win for all. But we could not, as a township, basically tell them that they can put up signs when we're going against zoning ordinance, and I believe the council may, but I'll have the township attorney address that.
Right, so I think that, as was indicated, there may have to be a change of law here, all right, which, you know, it's possible, but it's not gonna happen immediately, all right, require change of ordinance. One of the other things that you should explore with the zoning officer, and I can speak to the township planner tomorrow about this, is there an opportunity for you to appear at planning board, perhaps to get a variance, all right, in order to erect some temporary signage during construction?
A waiver is not possible?
Well,
Wouldn't the
I mean,
Board of Adjustment be a better venue than a planning board?
I'm going to have to
For a
take a look
sign?
at the. I'm going to have to take a look at the ordinance. It's possible that perhaps it could be done at the zoning board.
I think
all
the
right?
Board of Adjustment can do it.
Right. If not, I mean, on most commercial development, as long as the use is permitted as of right, it's a matter of site plan, and the planning board may be able to do it by variance as well. But I will speak to the township planner tomorrow about that.
How long will something like this take?
Well, I think in order to change the ordinance to create basically a temporary exception, you're looking at probably 45 to 60 days, all right? Right, you know, and then, you know, at the plan, at the
That's why the
planning.
Board of Adjustment would be a better alternative.
Right, so I'll take a look at timeframes, but I don't think it could happen either at the planning board or the Board of Adjustment, anything less than 45 days. But let me speak to the zoning officer and the township planner tomorrow to see if there's a way that we could expedite that.
We appreciate that. It's even gonna get more troublesome as the days get shorter.
Right.
And there's no lit sign.
There's no
there.
lighting, right.
It's gonna be
We
more
have
problematic.
contact information
Yeah.
for you guys.
I wanna see that.
If you can give it
Right,
to
and
the
I'll-
clerk,
Yeah.
this way he can update you on what's going on
Right,
with the
there's a
attorneys.
matter of urgency, not only for ourselves, but for the
Absolutely.
other store owners of sustainability. I'd like to point out that it costs us at least $35,000 a month to run that business, and when you're bringing in less than $14,000 a month, how long is that sustainability? Even for a credible company like European Wax Center, that's fabulously successful in other
Would seem to me you should have a reduction in rent because he's
Yeah.
cutting into your business.
Well, it's,
Well, that still is
That's
not
one of the
going
other avenues
to-
that we're gonna try and pursue, but, you know, that's to be determined. Thank you.
That still is not going to bring people into
Maybe you
the
need more than
sector.
one solution, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Right.
that-
That's possible.
That's a good idea, is gonna go
Any
both
idea you have
directions.
will take.
But we appreciate your consideration on this, and
Good luck.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
and that's Troy Plaza.
Achay Parikh, 791 Park Road. I think I've met everyone except Ms. Sandman last council meeting. This is about a property right behind us, on Henry Street. Just want to know from the council members if there are any updates on the development of the I think affordable housing unit.
This was the Newbridge property?
This is the
that's-
Newbridge property that is now in the process of
Changing hands.
Changing hands with, I believe, Habitat for Humanity.
Habitat for
Correct. What I did was, as you know, I did watch the council meeting as best as I could and worked in concert with the clerk, who I work very closely with, and tried to answer questions. So we did come in on Saturday and put all the questions together. I think on Monday, the clerk did send you all the answers to your questions. How
Yeah.
much money? So you did receive that.
Yes, we
What
did. Okay.
What I also did, I think this is the only question, Council President. So I'm gonna get into it.
Is that your only question, sir? Or do you have-
No. So
Well, it's gonna be Okay, go ahead.
All right.
You can ask all your questions, or you can, because the council also got copies of everything that you requested in, for an answer. They
Right.
all were copied on that.
And I also sent a letter on behalf of all.
I did get that.
Okay.
I think I just got that today.
Yeah, so-
And I did provide it to the, our attorney.
Okay.
So that, go ahead.
All right, so
Okay.
I think the main issue here is we also heard about the co-op presentation from the developers, but
Mhm.
I think we're not sure as all the neighbors that what is being built and if the construction project that Habitat has planned for is it over the numbers required for the affordable housing in the town, or is it meeting the requirement? And I think just besides the affordable housing piece, the lot itself is an acre lot in a single family neighborhood, and that kind of the development we saw today, it's completely commercial area and right on Route 10 compared to putting something in a residential neighborhood, single family neighborhood. So I don't think it really justifies the area for this type of project. So just need assistance from everyone here and the council members and.
Well, and if you saw at the last meeting, there's this acre
Yeah.
property.
No,
Now
I've lived with it for over a year.
the
I'm
new owner
well
wants
aware
to-
of it.
I guess apparently this new person, the speculation is out there that they want to build 12 condos and cram them into a neighborhood on a 1 acre piece of property.
I'm going to defer to the attorney on this because okay. Jim?
So why don't we just start at the very beginning? So
Yeah.
the property was initially purchased by Newbridge back in, I think,
2013.
Yeah. Right? And Newbridge purchased the property with the assistance of the Township Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Right.
At that time, there was a proposal by Newbridge to do a group home there for the developmentally disabled. Newbridge had trouble finding a partner as well as state funding resources to actually operate the home. So the property is the subject of a deed restriction. It can only be used for affordable housing purposes. All right. I understand that Newbridge has contracted to sell the property to Habitat for Humanity, all right, which is proposing, I believe it's a 12-unit condominium project there. Now, there's already public money that has financed the initial acquisition and some of the prior site development costs, all right? And I think Habitat has expressed its intention to apply to the township for more money in order to facilitate the construction. Separate and apart from that, there'll be the typical land use proceeding, all right, which will be at the Zoning Board of Adjustment because the property is currently zoned for single-family purposes, and this will be a multifamily development, so it'll require a use variance to be considered by the zoning board, and all the neighbors will have an opportunity at that point, to come to the hearing and express their concerns about the development. It's not appropriate for mayor and council to rule as to whether or not a use variance will be granted because that's the purview of the zoning board.
I see.
And again, they depending on, the property and the use, I mean, that's up to them. I mean, maybe, it might be less units or, I can't speak to that, but this is something that the property itself, because it was purchased and documentation, as you saw, it didn't just happen. We did it under the, under the full, by the law. We went through all the process. So the property is restricted for that purpose. So I would just leave it to what our council is saying, and the attorney is saying that it has to go before other boards and that's when the public would come out and say.
I have a question for
concerns.
Mr. Lott on this.
Sure.
If they're gonna come back and ask us for more money,
Mhm.
wouldn't we have a say on whether it's gonna be 12 units or 10 units or 8 units?
Well, that's a
Before
function.
we loan them the money?
I think that's a function of how much money they ask for and what the size of the construction is.
I guess as far as the property itself, you mentioned that it's designated for the affordable. What makes it that designation? Is it the funding piece or the
Yes,
obligation?
it was the funding piece, which was done back in 2013. There's a deed restriction on the property that says the property can only be used for affordable housing purposes.
I see.
And they've already expended funds from the trust fund on this from 2013 through 2016.
That's
Yes,
correct.
they bought the
And
property.
that was in connection with the original New Bridge proposal, which unfortunately was not able to move forward.
It had to do with, they started out with, they were gonna do 6 units, and then it wound up to be 4 units, and then what happened is they had 3, they went to a group the people that would run it, and they couldn't make that partnership work. Matheny, I think, was the first.
Right.
Fell out.
I
and
think there
then
were several attempts.
There was
Right.
then a second attempt and to run it, and it fell out, and then the third attempt. One of the things that you will know, because I've been involved in this for quite some time, was it was generated by the fact that the concern was from the neighborhood about tearing down the property, but we couldn't expend any more funds because it had to be a affordable purpose, and you can't tear down the building with those funds.
Correct.
Because it didn't go to another affordable housing entity.
So now that Habitat
Yeah.
has stepped forward, they'll be able to move forward
Yeah.
with the demolition. I don't want to put Mr.
Yeah.
Stikus on the spot, but I believe that the project may have already been identified as part of the township spending plan.
It was. It
Right.
was. We just got that today. But
Right.
it was, yeah.
So as far as the outside third party satisfying the obligations, as far as the money town has spent, does not remove that the deed restriction, or that's
No.
okay.
No.
Thank you.
No, it'll go before the zoning board.
How you doing? I'm Patel. I'm at 5 Lane Street. So when is the zoning board going to be voting on this particular subject at hand?
So I think it's all going to depend on when Habitat acquires the property and when they file an application.
But the residents within a certain distance would be notified.
That's
For a hearing.
correct. Right. Everyone who's within 200 feet will have to receive notice of that.
All right. I just want to make sure that you guys all are aware of what our concerns are as well, right? We all have single-family homes that I moved into 11 years ago. I've been raising my kids in there since. They go to the schools. I coach football, baseball in this town. They play the sports. I mean, in order for us to stay in this town and hold the marketability or the value of our homes, putting this 12-unit or 8-unit dwelling right in the middle of all of our homes is severely going to impact us negatively.
Look for those
At least in
zoning board-
marketability.
yeah,
I mean,
you got to look for those zoning board
Yeah.
announcements.
Yeah.
There's at this point, there's nothing that we can do to help you.
I can mention from experience that the group homes that I've been involved with in Parsippany, the market value of the residential homes adjacent to them did not go down. They're maintained. There are no problems with them, and no market value has gone down in any of those homes, even the ones right next door.
But that's a group home versus.
Those are group homes.
12 condos.
They're
Right.
affordable.
But
Right.
they're,
One home.
but they also are for purchase. It's
They
that
are.
other
Right.
part
It's
of
a
the plan. It's not just,
Right.
they'll be renting them. So, and again, hey, this is all, it's all moving, and, I hear what you're saying, and, you'll certainly have that opportunity, and we have very good boards that, will hopefully find some medium to do our obligation and to do right by you.
excellent. And when will those notes or the mail go out?
It'll be quite some time. It really will be. I don't envision much before the end of the year, anything going out.
Okay.
But keep a look at it, and they're obligated to the 200 feet which you fall under.
Right.
You will be noticed.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I think I just want to make one distinction. So you mentioned about the value of the property, surrounding properties.
I was corrected. I was talking about the group homes that
Yeah.
we've implemented in Parsippany.
Right.
This is not really.
This
gonna
is
be
a condo.
group-
This is a condo unit, and
Yeah.
I think it comes down to, so obviously we're not comparing single family assessment with a condo assessment, but
Yeah.
would the comparison would be
Yeah.
marketability
I'm,
for
I'm,
my.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we can't have that because he already spoke, and in the
Oh, okay.
interest of time,
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I do apologize, but anything afterwards you can discuss with council.
Okay.
Okay.
Bob Bars, 807 Park Road. I kind of feel I'm responsible for this whole situation because for 6 years, I've been calling the mayor's office trying to get a very small house removed. That's all I wanted, okay? Now you're saying, well, that hasn't been done. We've spent $116,000, but we couldn't find $20,000 to destroy the house. And now you're saying we have, if we're within 200 feet, now we can come to the zoning meeting. Well, nobody said for the past 6 years, where you've been giving out this money to Newbridge Services, nobody said, well, let's see if the community around that property is willing to agree to us doing this. Now we're feeling the brunt of this whole situation after the fact. Where was Parsippany for the past 6 years with the 10 people whose backyards all come up against a nice wooded lot?
If you're looking at me, sir, I was in Mendham.
You were what?
I was in Mendham as the administrator of Mendham. That's where I was.
My
6 years ago.
mailbox and my phone has
I'm
been,
not
has
trying to
been,
be facetious.
been available for 6 years. 6 years. Now you're saying, oh, it's now the property's condemned to affordable housing. After the fact. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
Can I ask a question? In 2013, was this decided that it was affordable? How was that, how was this determined?
Yeah, I don't know, I wasn't around for any of that, but there must have been a determination made that the property was going to be purchased by Newbridge for affordable housing purposes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know the rationale that was used at the time, but.
But at that time.
And the state law allows,
That's correct.
ARCs and
But at
special
the
group
time, wouldn't it have
homes
been appropriate
to,
talk to the people that are alongside that piece of property, all 10 families?
Back then, it was for one home.
one group home,
Now, all of a
yes.
sudden, it's turning into.
I know, but going back then, okay,
Right.
we're talking about a group home.
Right,
6
one home,
handicapped or mentally challenged citizens
Right.
to live in that house, and that's what we had approved 6 years ago, yeah.
Right, so,
And then what happened?
so that's absolutely correct. The law treats group homes as a single-family home.
Yeah,
Okay? That was done in 2013. As the result of the preliminary proposal by Habitat, this requires a use variance because it will make the project into a multifamily condominium project.
And at that time, and at that time, when you get your notice from your Board of Adjustment that a meeting will be had, then you go there and you present all of your objections. You can't, sir, you have to sit
Sir,
down.
sir.
Sir, I'm sorry, sir.
We'll have one meeting in order.
Sir, you're gonna have. Sir,
You're
you
gonna have
sit
to
down.
relax.
Sir, you have to sit down.
I'm not done.
No, you're done because you
You didn't say a word yet. I'm not done.
Sir, you. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Gary Greco. I live at 790 Park Road. I'm just amazed, as some of you are, that in 2013 I was not allowed a voice in this decision to make this piece of property, which is right nearby my house, to make this piece of property dedicated to something other than what the rest of the neighborhood is comprised of, which is single-family homes. I'm sure you all live on nice neighborhoods and beautiful homes, and somehow you decided to pick on our neighborhood to put this 20, 12, 8, whatever you're deciding to put on it. I just want to say that there are retired people within that 200-foot radius. My neighbor, Billy LaVista, couldn't come here tonight. He would have liked to have been here, but he's retired. I'm retired. Gentleman back there is retired. You know, they say your home is your biggest investment in life. Well, thank you, okay? As I'm gonna watch the price of my home deteriorate, the noise, the traffic, everything right outside my door is going to increase because of this project, which now we only have input too little, too late with the Board of Estimate. So I just want to say I'm severely disappointed in the way the township has malfunctioned, okay, and left us in this little neighborhood, which is just like all the other neighborhoods we live in, suddenly targeted to have increased noise, pollution, cars. My goodness, if a private developer had said he was going to do this, it wouldn't fly. It would never fly. You would never allow it. But in this special case, I guess it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who lives around that house or houses, whatever you're going to build there, and how it affects their finances. It doesn't matter, I guess, to you guys.
Sir, if I could tell you, in 2013, when that was voted on, okay, the council was told that there was going to be a single-family house for that property, okay, for this group. Single family. There was no mention whatsoever of what's being brought up now. 12 condos, this and that. I can assure you that if it was my vote and somebody back then would have said 12 condos or even 8 condos, absolutely not. That original project was one single family home. Unfortunately, what has happened here, and I don't like it at all, what's happened is that particular group did not get the funding in order to build that. But now that piece of property is stuck in this affordable housing criteria, and this new person wants to come in and potentially build 12 condos, which is now not in our hands. Had that project in 2013 been presented, I highly doubt, I can tell you right flat out right now, there was no way I would have voted for that. Absolutely not.
Me neither.
And I would say Mr. DePiero would not have either. So,
Well, if it was backdoored and you guys got snookered, I think you really ought to come to the plate here.
well, back
Step
then
up
it
to the
wasn't
plate
backdoored.
and help
that
us.
it wasn't backdoored. That particular group was had every intention on just building that single-family home.
Absolutely.
They unfortunately, as they went through the process, could not get the additional funding they needed and had to get out.
Yes, I understand. But it seems like they piecemealed their way to where we are now, and we are going to go to this new meeting and have, I guess, our day in court, and it's going to mean nothing.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
So
I don't think that's true
who's
at all.
here behind us?
They,
Who is here
that-
with us?
I can tell you I'm with you, but it's not, I'm not on that board, so I don't have a deciding vote on that.
You have very
But-
qualified,
But you have influence. And I
Not-
think you ought
not
to
with-
use it.
Not with them.
not with the board.
No.
You have influence, okay? I know you do. And I know you can help, and I know every one of you can help, because this is going to be a travesty.
Listen, I can assure you that
If
me
it goes
personally,
forward, it's
I
gonna
will
be
do
a
everything I
travesty.
possibly can for you because I totally agree.
I appreciate
do not
that.
want to see your neighborhood. I think that would ruin your neighborhood. That's my opinion. But, you know, and I will do everything that I possibly can, but there's only certain things that I can do as a council.
When
I
you-
totally understand what you're saying.
Thank you.
Also, when you receive notice, if you'd let us know, or some of us know, I wasn't on the council in 2013, but with all of the other group homes that I've been involved in these past 3.5 years, I had a mentally challenged brother. And because several of the group homes came before us and wanted individual homes, I voted yes. But I have to agree with Mr. Carriffy. I wasn't on the board in 2013, and I don't think if it was presented today to us, I don't think any one of us would say yes to that application.
Well, again, what was presented to us in
It was
2013 was a
exactly.
group home.
Yes.
That's what
yes,
we
a
approved.
single, yes.
I,
A single home, yes.
I also have mentally challenged relatives. I think a lot of us do. It's not about that. It's about the traffic. It's about the noise. It's about perhaps children playing from 12 houses on one street.
And again, had it been a
And-
single-family
in a-
house, you wouldn't have had that.
In a neighborhood.
You wouldn't have had that.
Yes,
Had it been this,
yes.
had it been what was presented to us originally, you would have never had
But-
that.
but-
I have a home that's right around the corner from me, and it's just like any other home.
Yeah.
You,
I do
you would,
too.
you wouldn't really, you wouldn't know they're there.
Right.
But understand, what you're saying, I totally get it. I
Well,
totally understand. Yeah, you
I won't
can't-
take up any more of your time, just to say, if any of you can use your influence and let people know who are making these decisions that it was not done correctly, it was not done honestly, it was literally backdoored through several avenues of government here.
Is this
And that it
project-
shouldn't go forward in this manner. I'd appreciate it.
It's not a done
Well,
deal.
then,
It's not
Thank
a done
you.
deal.
when
you're
you, as I stated before, when you received your letters, notify us. You have our emails from the township. Notify us, and if we can come to the meetings, I understand your problem and your objections totally.
Mary Przicki, Marcella Road. Are you telling me that the trust fund money was used by Highbridge to buy the
Newbridge.
Newbridge to buy the property?
Yes.
Yes? And then they put a covenant on the property that it would have to be always sold for affordable housing?
In exchange for the township's funding of Newbridge,
Right.
they had to put a deed restriction on the property.
And you want to approve what just came in here now for these 33 houses when we could get screwed the same way again? What do you mean you don't think so? It's possible, it just happened. What if somebody else comes?
Mary, that'd be 33 existing,
Yeah, no.
existing buildings.
I thought it was,
33
30
existing
Yeah.
dwellings.
Yeah.
okay, so if you have 33 apartment units, and say someone like Tivoli says, okay, we'll take the 33, right? Okay? Or whatever it is for this plan that you have for the trust fund, then for 30 years, who subsidizes it as the rents go up? Where does that money come from? Rents go up all the time, and if you're talking 30 years here, and the town somehow is obligated to these rental people for 30 years or whatever out of this trust fund money, how does it not get depleted?
Right, so
Is that your only question?
Yeah, that's why I was waiting for you to finish that. I
Let her-
didn't want
let
to
her
interrupt.
answer- let her ask
Yeah,
all her questions.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's about it, because, this pilot program, I thought the pilot was approved at that 2017 meeting, that they would, there was an agreement that they'd have to go into it, that you people are locked into that already.
no.
No.
The township's only obligated to provide the pilot if council decides to move forward with the redeveloper agreement. To answer your earlier question with respect to market to affordable, all right, there are a couple different ways that the subsidy can be structured, and that would be the subject of some negotiation between the township and the landlord. But, typically what happens is that either the township will pay some portion of the rehab costs, and the landlord would then agree to restrict the unit for 30 years, or there is some rental assistance buy down that's offered based on usually a present value discount of the amount of the rent now and its projected rent over the next 30 years.
And that would always come out of
the trust fund.
Out of the trust fund.
Correct.
So there could always be an increase then, every year or every 2
Right,
years or
but
whatever.
the township would make the deal up front, all right, and, pay the present value cost of that probably over a period of years, but not during the entire 30-year period.
And if this council says no to this pilot amendment, then what happens?
Then there's no project.
There's no project. They'd
Correct.
have to go back to their original drawing board, and they'd have to agree to the 67 units. Is that what it would be?
Well, if there's no project, the property is still the subject of the redevelopment plan, and the developer would have to come forward with another proposal.
Because $75,000 per unit. Shoot, I didn't know you could build that cheap anything.
It is not billed. You gotta listen.
No,
not
I'm
billed.
Not billed.
about, isn't that what he
can't-
was going to give for
No.
each unit?
Yes, he is, but it's not to build. It's to, well, meant supplement.
Yeah, I know,
Right.
but what
It's
would
to
it
renovate or
cost him to
subsidize.
build it? I mean, it's profit on his side. It's profit on his side, in my opinion, but, you know, that's my opinion. But anyhow, the other thing of it is, you know, I still can't, I think the language for single plastic bags have to be looked at pretty well, single use. Is that how you say it? Single-use plastic bags? Yeah, because, I mean, it could get complicated, because there's my garbage bag, it's single use. There's my baggie, it's single use. So, you know, think before you act about that. Thank you.
Yeah, what do we put our garbage out in? Single-use bag.
Hi, Nancy Chaffo. I was talking about the development that we have on 15. First, I was wondering, is there a deed restriction on the property that they were talking about down by Park Road there? And if we could lift the deed restriction, so maybe they cannot do what they're going to try to do over there. Is there any way they could, you know, take that away? But as for the Stanberry development, also, you're talking about upscale apartments and all this other. Have they consulted the school board and the effects that it's going to have on the schools in that area? Because with that many units, you're going to have a large influx of children. Again, and no one on the school board will know about this unless someone tells them from the council that you're allowing this to happen. You know, Parsippany was recognized as the #1 place to live in New Jersey, and now you're going to be doing more overdevelopment, which can cause more flooding, which will cause more problems, because we have flooding every time now. It rains in this area, and now you have another whole area that, you know, potential. And if you ask the developer to include any funds for anything we have to build on the schools, maybe expand our schools or build a new school in that area, because you're talking about Brooklawn Middle School, the Hills High School, but it will impact the elementary schools on that side of town. So if you're, 1515 Route 10, you know, if that's going to be a Parsippany development, has anyone even contacted the school board and talked about the impacts to the schools, which cost us tax dollars? Everyone knows the school tax is high, and it's part of our set, but, you know, you have a new development going in there, and, you know, we don't want overcrowded classrooms, which will take us away from #1 town and place to live in New Jersey, far down the scale. Thank you.
I mean, I can address that. Mike Hanley, who is our financial consultant, did, you know, get in touch with the schools. And if you listen to the number that was going to produce, this is done with formulas and everything. And yeah, okay.
And how many children
Sir.
Yeah. Okay. Mike, do you have a rough number? You mentioned it in your presentation. I don't want to misquote it. Yeah, 20 to 25 more, yes. Remember, these are millennials and empty nesters.
Millennials can't afford homes, they still have student homes.
They're not homes, they're apartments.
Okay, okay. I can't, that's not how it works.
Go ahead, Nick.
Nick Komiak, Lake Hiawatha. Has Parsippany tried to pursue any nonprofits for public housing as an alternative to having to give pilot deals and trust funds and, 50% and however long 50% lasts and whatever they can do with it, because if we explore it, because it's up in the air, right? Governor Christie destroyed COA, so it's really only developers challenging municipalities about an obligation that nobody even knows anymore. I mean, in my opinion, shouldn't all housing be affordable? But, But anyway, I just have a question for this developer here. When they pave all this ground for his ideal parking lot and everything in this fantasy world, are they going to be using porous asphalt? You know what porous asphalt is, right?
Yeah.
Or will they can't afford that because I guess they want to, they want to save money. Just a brief word about the plastic bag, and I heard talks, oh, we're consumers and it's going to cost a nickel. Well, are you a citizen or a consumer first? Do you want to live in a polluted community? Because you look at the overall phenomena of plastic and how long recycle's been around already, and look at the end result. And when any of these plastic products were put out on the market, was it done in a democratic sense? Was it passed by Congress or the Senate? No, it was done in closed quarters in a corporate room and just let out in the market, and we're stuck with all these convenient projects. And they get cute and they put the little recycle symbol on it, and there's so many of them they don't even know what to do with it. But the end result is pollution. And if that doesn't disturb you, and if you want to live in a community like that, and you'd rather, keep your plastic bag because you recycle and then the whole world recycles, I mean, it's just inconsiderate. And being a consumer, I guess, is not really being a citizen. That's the way I interpret that. And there is a water deficit. And there's proof that there is a water deficit, and the Highlands people already know it. I can supply information, but if, like Mr. Dolsky says, we bring some people from the Highlands here, they'll explain what this water deficit is. And it does exist in our watershed. And Parsippany has the greatest water deficit of anyone for several reasons. So I won't take any more of your time, but at another meeting, if you want me to educate the public a little bit on the reasons why Parsippany in particular has the worst deficit in our aquifer here, then I'd be glad to enlighten the public.
I don't know, Nick, did you come late to the meeting? Because I did reference the fact that I have been in touch with our liaison to the Highlands based on the fact that the councilwoman McCarthy did get a letter from the Anjac gentleman stating the deficit. They were going to have a paper produced for that and answer all those questions, and one was right up at the top was the deficit. Because it is a complex issue, which you would admit to that, it's not as easy as, it's not a straight line. They asked if we would say this evening that by the end of next week, they're going to have something produced for us to address that too. And I'm not saying not to have them come out again, because as you know, a good couple of years ago when I first came here, I did have the Highlands folks come out. But that being said, we'll have that answer to the public as well as to the council based on right from our liaison to the Highlands with regard to the deficit and all the other questions that were raised by the gentleman from Anjac.
All right, yeah, but it's just that I heard that it's not common knowledge, and even people in high places in Parsippany don't know that there is a water deficit. So, if you live in a place, you should know about it.
Well, we're going to get it straight from the Highlands, and that's what their job was.
The coalition?
The Highlands, yes.
All right, okay,
Yeah,
should be.
council,
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are two groups, right? So the coalition's a not-for-profit advocacy group. The council is the regulatory authority. Yes, exactly. I think they want to talk to the coalition. That's what they want to hear. The council will come here.
Bob Venezia, 102 Brooklawn Drive. When the ordinance for Stanbury comes up, will we get a chance to talk about that later?
Yes.
Because
Yes. There's a public hearing on that, so yes.
Okay. Back to the water. Thanks to a meeting that I had with the mayor and the water superintendent, I received answers to all the water-related questions that I was unable to get from the council over the past couple of months. Now, Mr. Wawerka, he answered the majority of them, and so what I have now to say is mostly redundant, but there are some things that, you know, that he didn't cover that you might be interested in. The main thing to understand is that at no time have the residents of Parsippany been supplied with contaminated water. That being said, the rumor that contaminated water was present in one of the wells was more than just a rumor. It was a fact, although the level of contamination never exceeded the maximum level, and no, contaminated water was never supplied to the public. Perchloroethylene, PCE, also known as tetrachloroethylene, is a low to moderate risk toxic chemical. Its primary use is as a degreasing solvent, and it's used heavily in the dry cleaning business and in gas stations where they use it to remove grease from parts and equipment. The level of PCE had been approaching the danger level in one of our wells, but because of proactive monitoring by the water department, it was taken offline in June of last year, of 2017. The water being supplied by the remaining wells is well below the maximum contamination level for every one of the many chemicals that are tested, including PCE. So what happened to the water that was present in the well that was taken offline? Well, the response given at a council meeting that the well was dry, as the business administrator explained, was somewhat misleading because it wasn't dry in the sense of, you know, that a layman knows that it's dry.
Correct.
And another misleading fact was that wells often go dry and have to be replaced. In fact, only one well has been closed since 1982. The well the well in question is still full of water that has a concentration of this PCE that is just below the maximum contamination level. Theoretically, the PCE could spread to other wells because they all tap into the same aquifer. However, all of the wells are monitored in accordance with the DEP regulations, and to date, no contamination has spread to any other well. The source of the contamination, the water department identified the probable source of contamination as a tract of land that was formerly occupied by Bouton Electronics, a company that has been closed for decades. The water department is actively monitoring the spread of the PCE to you know, in case it goes to any other wells, and so far there hasn't been any, but if there is, you know, they'll have to take more extensive and expensive measures. How often is the water quality of the wells tested? The DEP has mandated that water samples be tested annually unless there is an issue. The well that was eventually taken offline had an issue and was being tested quarterly as a result. The levels of PCE in this well have been trending upward for a number of years. However, none of the other wells have experienced a similar upward trend. And lastly, the town is currently looking for a site to dig a replacement well and has hired a hydrologist in that effort, and that's the information that I found out. So,
Thank you, Bob.
Thank
you,
you,
Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, see no one else come forward, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion?
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. The roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Okay, Mr. DePiero?
Ordinance 2018:23, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2015:27, entitled, an ordinance establishing hourly wage ranges for blue-collar employees of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on September 25th, 2018, and that said ordinance be further considered for a second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on October 30th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance, with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Ordinance 2018:24, an ordinance amending the ordinance number 2018:16 entitled an ordinance establishing white-collar salary ranges for the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on the first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on September 25th, 2018, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on October 30th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given the opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're going to move on to the non-consent agenda. Mrs. Grignani?
Resolution 2018-150. Excuse me?
Good.
2018-156, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills authorizing 2018 RAD, I think I'm pronouncing that incorrectly.
Royd.
Royd grant application. Motion to approve resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes. If we can just skip
Okay,
down
we're going
direct.
to move on to Mrs. Peterson, 159.
Resolution 2018-159, resolution of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills placing a lien on a particular property for failure to abate dangerous conditions on a property. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mrs. Grignani?
Resolution 2018-160, resolution of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills placing a lien on a particular property for failure to abate dangerous conditions on property. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. DePiero? Consent agenda?
Consent agenda. Be it resolved, all items listed with an asterisk are routine and non-controversial by the Township Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Sorry. Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Peterson?
Before we read the closed session, I just want to let the public know that when we're done with the closed session, we will be coming out and taking action on the ordinance and resolutions that I mentioned in my earlier report, just for the public's knowledge.
And for purposes of the record, clerk, why don't you identify those?
Okay. Ordinance number 2018-22, discussing the Stanberry redevelopment agreement, the amendment particularly. Resolution 2018-157, also discussing the redevelopment agreement with Stanberry. And Resolution 2018-158, appointing Keith Kasmark as the business administrator of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills.
Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss personnel matters and contract negotiations, 1515 Route 10 Stanberry, and whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills that the public be excluded from this meeting. Motion to adjourn into closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
We're going to adjourn into closed session and we'll return shortly. Thank you.
Okay.
Entertain a motion to reconvene?
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Okay, back into open session.
Ordinance 2018:22, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, Morris County, amending the redevelopment plan for property identified as Block 200, Lot 1.2, and located at 1515 Route 10 in the township, and referring said amendment to the Planning Board for review and comment in accordance with the local redevelopment and housing law, NJSA 40A:12A-1 ET SEQ. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, on September 14th, 2018. This ordinance was introduced at the September 11th, 2018 agenda meeting. Motion to accept that ordinance 2018-22 be heard in its second and final reading by title only by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call. Mr. DePiero?
I had planned to vote no on this, except when I found out that Ellen had negotiated, we get the redevelopment area bond is going to be paid for by the Morris County Improvement Authority. That was my major objection. So when that objection went away, I'm fine with this. I would say yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Well, for some concerns I have about financing, no.
Ms. Peterson?
I have spent more time, I think, on this project maybe than any other up until this point. Ellen, maybe library health insurance? Close call.
Okay.
I have a number of significant concerns about the site design and the flow of traffic, but the site is going to be redeveloped, and I think that we have invested an exorbitant and meaningful amount of time in what this project can look like in terms of vision for the future, and I intend to hold the planning site design accountable to the conversations that we have had. And they know I will. I will try my hardest.
Yes, you
and-
will. I know you will.
So
Witness.
I will vote yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Public hearing, 2018-22. Motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2018-22.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by
Second.
Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
The floor is open for discussion on this ordinance only.
Bob Venezia, 102 Brooklawn Drive. I can see where this project helps a developer, makes money. I can see where it helps millennials with some housing, but I don't see anything that Parsippany as a town gets out of this. According to the newspaper article, it says this project will be the densest housing development ever in Parsippany. And that gets us, it sets a precedent for other developments. It also brings up us congested traffic, overcrowded schools, and then we got a new one tonight. Nick Homiak says that Parsippany is using up water at a greater, we're using up our water supply greater than it's replenishing. So he says we have a deficit. If that's true, we shouldn't be building, giving variances to build something that is going to drain more water and make this deficit worse. And if that's not bad enough, we get to subsidize Stanbury to the tune of $1 million a year. And how do we come up with that? If I heard correctly, we're going to pull in between $500,000 and $700,000 a year from this project. Now, based on actual numbers from 7,000 apartments in Parsippany, based on 2015 numbers, in that year, there were 18.7 students per 100 units. At that rate, there will be 82 students per 441 units. Not anything close to the optimistic estimate that we get from the developers that's based on air. I mean, these are actual numbers, and if you'd like to see them sometime, I'd be happy to show you. If you take that figure, 82 students times about, and at the time it was like $21,000 per student, you get a total of like $1.8 million. We're pulling in 500 to 700. We're laying out 1.8 just for education, not for anything else. That's a difference of $1 million. And for what we're getting nothing out of it, and we're paying and we're subsidizing to boot. So I say, if you guys are representing the residents of Parsippany, you should not approve this thing or any other. I'm not picking on Stanbury. Any other project, any mega apartment project in Parsippany that's already not approved or zoned for that purpose. Thank you.
Seeing no one else come forward, I make a motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2018-22.
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
The floor is closed.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second hearing and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading and that a notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes. Before I vote, I just want to, in some of the things that you had said, Bob, one of the things was there was that was talked about and negotiated with this was major improvements to Dryden Way, which would keep a substantial amount of traffic off of Route 202 and away from that area, which was very, very important, I thought, because we all know what 202 looks like at major traffic hours. And also, with our COA obligations, potentially if this project were not to go through and something else were to go through there, we could be potentially facing a lot more in that area. And I think that's an area that doesn't impact, as long as the traffic is going to be diverted the way it's going to be, according to the plan, will not impact any particular neighborhoods, currently existing neighborhoods. So I think that's a very important factor in this, and it helps us in getting credits towards our affordable housing number, whatever that number winds up being. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but it gets us more towards whatever that number is going to be.
Okay, so
I vote yes.
All right, so I'm sorry, it's just a little late, and I just want to make sure we have the proper roll, especially for this final one. So I want to go through roll call one more time. Mr. DePiero,
Mrs. Beera, he's asking for a vote again.
just to vote again. I want to go through one more time just to make sure we have the proper
Well,
roll.
I just wanted to add on what Paul just mentioned. 47 of these units are going to be studio apartments. I don't think studio apartments bring in any school children. 210 units are going to be one bedroom. Not too many school children are going to go into there either. And 150 units are going to be two bedroom. So the numbers that you quoted are way, way, way off of what actually will be produced. I'm not going to debate it with you.
Okay, so Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
What are we voting on now?
You're voting in
It's the
totally
ordinance.
different-
It's the-
you're
it's the
voting
same
again on what you
ordinance.
just
The approval of
voted
this.
on.
So we're voting again on,
The
that I just voted no on?
Correct.
Well, no.
That's why.
No.
Okay. Yeah, because you had voted. Yeah, that's
voted
why.
yes.
It was.
Yeah, you voted
very
yes.
late. That's why.
Wait a minute.
You did.
You just
There were
voted
two
yes.
votes.
That's
There are
why I
two
ran
votes.
roll again.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
it was clearly a mistake. That's why I ran roll again, because I noticed that she did. Just so we're clear, I just want to say that for the
Okay.
record. I should have said it initially. I did notice that Ms. McCarthy had voted no on the first one and then yes on the second. I didn't want to say it on the record, but since we're talking about it now, I know it's very late. I know it was a total
Well,
mistake.
she also seconded the motion.
She did second the motion
Wait
as
a
well.
minute. We're talking,
so
we're
we-
just talking about the ordinance 2018, it's very late now.
Correct.
2018:22. That's what we're
2018
talking.
22. We
Okay.
initially voted for the motion to accept the ordinance 2018-22. Just for the record, we're clear. 2018-22 motion to accept the ordinance be heard in its second final reading was the motion was made by Emily, seconded by Loretta. Mike, Loretta, Emily, and Paul all voted yes. Janice voted no. And then we get to the final vote, which is voting to approve the resolution which accepts the ordinance. At that point, I'm sorry, everybody out there, but I'm going to run it this last time, and it's the final time, so we're done. Okay, this is an important ordinance, so I want to make sure everything is proper.
Yeah.
So, Mr. DePiero? This is for the motion to accept the resolution. Motion to accept the resolution.
Yeah, I know what it's for.
Thank you.
It's the ordinance.
Yes.
To the resolution, say the
Again.
number.
Yeah, or to accept the ordinance 2018-22.
Who made the motion and who seconded it?
Approve it.
I made the
A motion to approve the resolution. The motion was made by Emily and seconded by Janice. So we need to, because you seconded the motion, which is okay. I mean, there's
Yeah,
nothing,
no-
it's not a
Well,
problem
we're
with
going to
that.
do it again anyhow. so-
No, we're just going to do roll. We're just
Okay.
going to do roll.
I voted yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Miss-
voted yes.
Correct. Miss McCarthy?
No.
Miss Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Mr. DePiero, 2018-157.
2018-157, resolution designating 1515 Parsippany LLC as redeveloper of the property known as Block 200, Lot 1.2 in the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills and authorizing execution of a redevelopment agreement with 1515 Parsippany LLC for the redevelopment of such property for a mixed-use development in accordance with the redevelopment plan. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Well, for the same reasons, that I won't go into because of the hour. It's about financing the project and, no.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
R 2018-158, resolution of the Township Council of Parsippany Troy Hills consenting to the appointment of Keith Casmar as the business administrator of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills. Motion to approve the resolution?
Second.
Yeah, right. So for purposes of Resolution 158, it's an appointment of the Township Administrator. That resolution in the title should be amended to reflect the salary that is going to be paid.
So can we please,
Yes, we should state that now.
so, if you could reread the resolution and at the end, just put with a salary of, and then this way we've amended the resolution. I'll make sure it's amended. But if you can restate it and include the salary, please, as the township attorney stated, so we have it for the record.
Resolution 2018-58, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills consenting to the appointment of Keith Kasmark as the business administrator of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills at a salary of $165,000.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
No, I think the salary is too high for a starting employee.
Ms. Grignani.
I'm also going to vote no. I think the Mr. Kasmark will do well. I also think the salary is too high. I have no problem with him learning what is going on in our township. We have a township that is probably more than twice the size of the township that he came from before. And that is the reason why I'm voting no.
Ms. McCarthy.
Well, I think because the fundamentals of government, and the fundamentals of the budgets and the process that goes into being a business administrator, is the same. So I feel that that I'm comfortable with the salary, and I don't think, I just think going forward that the processes are similar. So I'm comfortable with the salary.
So that's a yes.
That's a yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
And Mr. Carriffy.
Before I vote, I just wanted to say I had some concerns in reference to, the salary and in comparison to what our current business administrator's benefit package is. But then it was brought to our attention that Mr. Kasmark would not be taking medical insurance from the town, which actually saves the town about $26,000. So therefore, at a $26,000 savings to the town in the overall benefit package, and I feel that he will do a very good job. He's come highly recommended, and I do have confidence in him, and I know he'll be training under Ellen, and I have confidence in that Ellen will have him squared away and ready to go.
No. It's joint partnership.
So I vote yes.
Okay, so the motion passes 3 votes to 2. Congratulations, Mr. Kasmark.
This time, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion. Are you
Second.
Hold on. Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.